What if Harry Potter got a green lantern ring instead of a Hogwarts letter? Chapter 1. The brightest light. The cupboard under the stairs at number 4, Privet Drive, was 4 feet wide, 6 feet deep, and smelled like dust and old shoes. A single bare bulb hung from a wire above, though it hadn't worked in 3 years and no one had bothered to replace it. Harry Potter lay on a thin mattress with his knees drawn up, staring at the underside of the staircase in the dark. He could hear the television through the wall, some nature program about sharks, turned up loud because Dudley liked the parts where things got eaten. Tomorrow was his birthday. He didn't think about that much. Birthdays at the Dursleys meant nothing, less than nothing actually, because Dudley's birthday meant presents, cake, and a trip somewhere expensive, and Harry's birthday meant being reminded of the difference. Last year Aunt Petunia had given him a wire coat hanger and a pair of Uncle Vernon's old socks. She'd smiled while she did it. Harry turned on his side, pressing his cheek against the cool wall. A spider crept along the baseboard near his head. He watched it with something like companionship. He wasn't thinking about tomorrow, he was thinking about the dream. It was the same dream he always had: green light, a woman screaming, and then falling. Falling through cold air that tasted like metal. But tonight, in the quiet dark of the cupboard, the dream felt closer than usual. Like the green light wasn't a memory but a promise. Stupid, he told himself. Go to sleep. He closed his eyes. 612 light-years away, something died. The Green Lantern of Sector 2814, a crystalline being from the methane oceans of LP7 named Korath Zen, took a plasma bolt through the chest at 4 past light speed. The bolt had been meant for a civilian transport carrying 4,000 refugees. Korath had placed herself between the bolt and the ship, her ring blazing a shield wide enough to cover the entire vessel. The shield held, Korath didn't. She tumbled through the vacuum, her body fracturing into shards of violet crystal, each shard catching the light of the distant sun. Her ring, a small, impossibly dense circle of green, registered the cessation of its bearer's vital functions in 3 seconds. Bearer deceased, scanning for replacement. Sector 2814. The ring detached from the floating remains of Korath Zen's hand and hung in space for exactly 1.7 seconds, processing. It reached out across the sector, across stars, nebulae, asteroid fields, past the red dunes of Mars and the frozen rings of Saturn, searching for the single quality it was designed to find. Willpower, not strength, not intelligence, not goodness even. The ring didn't care about goodness. It cared about the unbreakable thing inside a person, the core that said no when the universe said bend. The part that held on when holding on was insane. The spark that refused to go dark. The ring found 7 billion candidates on the third planet from the sun. It eliminated 6,999,999,999 of them in under a second. One remained. The ring punched into hyperspace and crossed 612 light-years in 11 minutes. It breached Earth's atmosphere over the Atlantic Ocean at 3 in the morning, trailing a line of green fire that briefly confused a weather satellite and made a fisherman off the coast of Cornwall drop his tea. It decelerated over the English countryside, skimmed the rooftops of Little Winging, Surrey, and phased through the wall of number 4, Privet Drive like the bricks were made of fog. It stopped in the cupboard under the stairs. It floated in the dark, glowing faintly just enough to illuminate the sleeping face of a skinny boy with messy black hair and a scar on his forehead shaped like a lightning bolt. The ring pulsed once, twice, and slid onto the middle finger of Harry Potter's right hand. Harry's eyes flew open. Green, everything was green, not the sickly green of his nightmare. This was something else entirely. Warm, alive. It poured through him like sunlight through water, filling every hollow space the Dursleys had carved into him over 10 years. The hunger faded. The ache in his back from the bad mattress vanished. The bruise on his shoulder where Dudley had punched him yesterday dissolved like it had never existed. And then came the voice. Harry Potter of Earth, you have been chosen. You have the ability to overcome great fear. Welcome to the Green Lantern Corps. He sat up fast, banging his head on the underside of the stairs. He didn't feel it. The ring on his finger was glowing like a trapped star, and in the green light the cupboard looked alien, every cobweb sharp, every dusty corner illuminated. What? He whispered. Information flooded in, not words exactly, more like knowledge pouring directly into his mind, filling spaces he didn't know he had. The guardians of the universe. The emotional spectrum. The central power battery. Sector 2814, constructs, the oath. It came in waves, each one building on the last, and Harry gripped the edges of his mattress and let it come because what else could he do? He was 10, almost 11, and he lived in a cupboard, and a ring from outer space had just chosen him as some kind of intergalactic police officer. Part of him wanted to scream. A larger part, the part that had survived Vernon's belt and Petunia's silence and Dudley's fists, that part was very, very calm. The ring pulsed on his finger. It felt like it was waiting. Harry looked at the cupboard door, the lock. The little sliding bolt that Aunt Petunia threw every night. He'd stared at that lock for 10 years. He raised his hand. A beam of green light hit the door and it didn't unlock, it ceased to exist. Door, hinges, frame, lock, all of it dissolved into green sparks that faded before they hit the carpet. Cool night air from the hallway rushed in, and Harry Potter stepped out of the cupboard under the stairs for the last time. He stood in the hallway of number 4, Privet Drive, and he was glowing. The ring's light crawled up his arm and across his body, replacing his oversized, second-hand pajamas with something else, a uniform. Black skin tight with green across the shoulders and chest, and in the center a symbol, a circle within a circle like a lantern, like his lantern, green boots, green gauntlets, a mask that formed across his eyes. He caught his reflection in the hallway mirror and almost laughed. He looked like something from one of the comic books Dudley had thrown away and Harry had secretly fished out of the bin. He looked like a hero. The floor creaked above him. A door opened. Heavy footsteps on the landing. "Who's down there?" Vernon Dursley's voice, thick with sleep and preemptive anger. "Boy, if you've gotten out again." Vernon appeared at the top of the stairs in his striped pajamas, mustache bristling. He looked down, saw Harry standing in the hallway bathed in green light, wearing some kind of bizarre costume with the cupboard door simply gone, and his face went through 3 colors in 2 seconds. Pink, white, and then a deep, dangerous purple. What the hell, what have you done, you ungrateful little—" "Stop," Harry said. He didn't shout, he didn't need to. The word came out calm and clear and final, and the ring glowed brighter as he said it, and Vernon Dursley stopped. Not because he wanted to. Because the boy at the bottom of the stairs looked up at him with glowing green eyes, and Vernon's animal brain, the part older than language, older than thought, understood something that his conscious mind refused to accept. The pecking order in this house had just changed permanently. "You," Harry said, and he walked up the stairs. He didn't float, though he could feel the ring telling him he could. He walked because he wanted Vernon to watch him come. One step at a time. "You locked me in a cupboard. For 10 years, Vernon pressed himself against the wall. Now see here, you starved me, you hit me. You told me my parents died in a car crash because they were drunks." Harry's voice didn't shake. The ring hummed on his hand, responding to the emotion underneath, not rage, not quite, something colder, something older. "Were they drunks, Uncle Vernon? We took you in out of the goodness. Were they drunks?" Petunia appeared in the bedroom doorway behind Vernon, her hand pressed over her mouth. She looked at Harry, at the ring, the uniform, the blazing green light, and her face crumpled in a way Harry had never seen before. Not anger, recognition. "No," she whispered, "they weren't." Harry looked at her. She flinched. "I know," he said, "the ring told me things. Not everything, but enough. My parents didn't die in a car crash. There's more to it, and I'm going to find out what, but that's not why I'm standing here." He raised his hand, and the ring projected an image between them, the cupboard, the mattress, the spiders, the lock on the outside. Green light painted it in perfect detail, hovering in the air like a photograph made of emerald fire. "I'm standing here because I want you to see what you did," Harry said, "and I want you to know that it's over. I'm never going back in there. I'm never going to flinch when Vernon raises his hand. I'm never going to go hungry because Dudley wanted thirds. It's done." Vernon sputtered. You can't just— "This is my house." "Yeah," Harry said. "It is, and I'll be out of it soon. But until then you're going to leave me alone, not because I'm asking, because I'm telling you." He turned and walked back down the stairs, and behind him he heard Petunia make a small, strangled sound that might have been a sob. He didn't look back. The ring pulsed gently on his finger, warm and steady, and when he reached the bottom of the stairs, he looked at the ruined cupboard doorframe and felt something he couldn't remember feeling before. He felt free. Harry walked out the front door into the night and rose into the air. There were no words for it. The ring carried him up through the cool summer darkness like he weighed nothing. Like gravity was a suggestion he'd politely declined. Privet Drive shrank beneath him, the identical houses, the identical cars, the identical hedges, and then Little Winging shrank, and then Surrey, and then he was above the clouds, and the moon was right there, enormous and silver, and the stars were everywhere, more than he'd ever seen, more than he'd thought existed. He laughed. He couldn't help it. It burst out of him, loud and real, and the ring flared brighter as if it was laughing with him. He shot forward, breaking the sound barrier without meaning to, and the clouds parted around him in a tunnel of green light. England rolled out beneath him like a map, London a blaze of orange in the darkness. The Channel, flat and silver, the coast of France, and beyond it the curve of the earth itself. Harry stopped. He floated at the edge of the atmosphere and looked down at the planet, and the ring whispered to him, showed him the other lanterns out there in the dark, thousands of them across thousands of sectors, each one a point of green light holding the line against chaos. He was part of that now. He was the lantern of Sector 2814. He was 11 years old in 4 hours. The ring chimed softly. Power level 87%. Recommend locating sector power battery for recharge. I don't have one, Harry said. Power battery assigned to Sector 2814 bearer. Current location in transit. Estimated arrival 3 hours. It's coming to me. Affirmative. Harry looked down at the ring. It glowed steadily on his finger, patient and alive, and he thought about everything it had poured into his mind, the core, the guardians, the oath, especially the oath. In brightest day, he whispered, testing the words, they felt right, they felt like armor. In blackest night, no evil shall escape my sight. Let those who worship evil's might beware my power, Green Lantern's light. The ring blazed. For a moment, just a moment, Harry Potter burned like a green star at the edge of Earth's atmosphere, visible from 3 continents and at least one very confused international space station. Then he dimmed, grinned to himself, and flew home. He spent the rest of the night sitting on the roof of number 4, Privet Drive, legs dangling over the edge, the ring painting constellations for him in green light while it taught him. Constructs, anything he could imagine, the ring could build from hard light. Shields, weapons, tools, vehicles. The only limit was his willpower and his creativity. Flight, obviously, enhanced durability. A universal translator, environmental shielding, he could survive in deep space underwater in a volcano, energy blasts, scanning and analysis. He was, the ring informed him matter-of-factly, one of the most powerful beings on this planet. Harry sat with that for a while. He thought about the cupboard. He thought about going hungry. He thought about Dudley and his gang chasing him across the schoolyard and nobody, not one teacher, not one adult, doing anything to stop it. Never again. Not to him, not to anyone he could protect. Dawn came slowly, pink and gold above the rooftops of Little Winging. Harry watched it from the roof and felt something settle inside him, something solid and permanent like a foundation being poured. Below him, the Dursleys' bedroom was silent. They hadn't come out since the hallway confrontation. Good, at precisely 7:16 in the morning, something large passed over the sun. Harry looked up. A shadow swept across Privet Drive, wide, fast, and too big to be a bird. Then a motorbike roared overhead, except no motorbike should be that high up, and no motorbike should be that big, and no motorbike should have a man on it the size of a small building. The ring flashed. Incoming entity. Classification, human variant. Significant genetic divergence, partial giant heritage. No hostile intent detected. The motorbike banked, circled, and descended toward number 4 with a sound like a freight train gargling. The enormous man on it, and he was truly enormous, with a wild tangle of black beard and beetle-dark eyes and hands like dustbin lids, brought it to a rattling, coughing stop right in the middle of the Dursleys' front garden, crushing 3 rose bushes and a ceramic gnome. He climbed off, pulled a crumpled pink umbrella from inside his massive leather coat and marched up the front path. Then he looked up and saw Harry sitting on the roof, cross-legged, glowing faintly green. The enormous man stared. Harry waved. "Blimey," the man said. His voice was like gravel being poured into a drum. "Blimey, Harry, Harry Potter." "That's me," Harry said. He floated off the roof, just drifted down, easy as stepping off a curb, and landed on the front lawn. The green aura dimmed to a soft shimmer around his shoulders. "Who are you?" The man's mouth was open. He closed it, opened it, closed it again, and then his whole craggy face split into an enormous waterfall of a smile. "Rubeus Hagrid," he said, and stuck out a hand the size of a manhole cover. "Keeper of keys and grounds at Hogwarts. Come to, well, I've come to." He stared at the green light, at the ring, at the uniform Harry was still wearing. "What in Dumbledore's name is that?" "Long story," Harry said and shook his hand. The ring hummed, analyzing, cataloging. "You said Hogwarts. Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry," Hagrid said, still staring. He patted his pockets with his free hand and produced a yellowish envelope slightly squashed. "Got your letter right here. Happy birthday, Harry." Harry took the envelope. Heavy parchment, green ink. His exact address, Mr. H. Potter, the cupboard under the stairs, 4 Privet Drive, Little Winging, Surrey. He looked at that line, the cupboard under the stairs, and something cold moved through him. They knew, whoever sent this letter, they knew where he'd been living and they'd never done anything about it. He filed that away for later. He opened the letter. "Dear Mr. Potter, we are pleased to inform you that you have been accepted at Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry." "Witchcraft?" Harry said. "And wizardry, yeah," Hagrid said, beaming. "You're a wizard, Harry, just like your mum and dad." Great witch and wizard they were before his face fell. "Well, no, before Voldemort killed them," Harry said. Hagrid flinched like he'd been slapped. Don't say the name." Voldemort killed my parents, Harry repeated flat and clear. The ring hadn't told him that was something else, something he'd half known for years in the whisper of green light and the sound of screaming. But Hagrid's reaction confirmed it. And I survived, and I have this scar because of it, and everyone in the wizarding world knows my name. Hagrid's eyes went wide. How da? It doesn't matter how. Harry looked at the letter again. School supplies, cauldrons, wands, robes, a world of magic. A world where his parents had lived and died. I'll go. Hagrid's smile came back, enormous and relieved. Course yeah will, greatest school in the world, Hogwarts, Dumbledore himself. But first, Harry said, I need to know everything, my parents, Voldemort, this scar, everything you know, Hagrid, and I need you to not leave things out because you think I'm too young or too fragile. I'm neither. He let the ring flare just for a second, a pulse of green light that threw their shadows long across the garden. Hagrid's beard fluttered in the energy wash. Right, Hagrid said weakly. Right, yeah, maybe we should have a cup of tea. They didn't have tea at the Dursleys. They had it at a cafe in London 2 hours later. After Hagrid explained about the leaky cauldron and Diagon Alley and the wizarding economy and Harry's vault at Gringotts, and a dozen other things that would have sounded insane to anyone who didn't already have an alien power ring on their finger. Harry listened, asked sharp questions, and noticed the things Hagrid danced around, the way he said Dumbledore thought it was best. When talking about placing Harry with the Dursleys, the way he got vague about why Voldemort had targeted the Potters specifically, the way he changed the subject whenever Harry pressed on the scar. Hagrid was a good man. Harry could feel that not through the ring, just through basic human observation. Hagrid was kind, honest, and about as subtle as a freight train. He was also clearly under orders to reveal only so much. Harry let it go, for now. The Leaky Cauldron was a cramped, dark pub wedged between a bookshop and a record store on Charing Cross Road. Muggles, non-magical people, Hagrid called them, walked past without seeing it, their eyes sliding off the doorway like water off glass. The ring detected the concealment field immediately. A localized perception filter, impressive by Earth standards but crude compared to own technology. Inside, the pub smelled like pipe smoke and old beer, and the moment Hagrid ducked through the door, heads turned. The usual Hagrid, called the barman. Can't, Tom, I'm on Hogwarts business. Hagrid put a massive hand on Harry's shoulder. Got young Harry here. The pub went silent. It was the ring Harry noticed first, not his ring, the reaction to his name. Every person in the room turned to look at him. A woman in a violet hat dropped her glass. An old man stood up so fast his chair fell over. Tom the barman leaned over the counter with his mouth hanging open. Bless my soul, Tom whispered. Harry Potter, it's Harry Potter. And then they swarmed him. It was bizarre. Grown adults pushing forward to shake his hand, tears in their eyes, babbling about where they'd been that night and how they never forgot and how honored they were. A pale young man in a purple turban shoved through the crowd with a stuttering introduction. PP Professor Quirrell, so pleased, and Harry shook his hand and felt the ring spike cold on his finger. He didn't know what the spike meant, not yet, but he noticed it. All right, he said, pulling his hand back from the latest well-wisher with a polite smile that was wearing thin. Thank you, everyone, really, but Hagrid and I have shopping to do. He let Hagrid lead him through the back of the pub to a small walled courtyard containing nothing but a dustbin and a brick wall. Hagrid counted bricks, tapped 3 times with the tip of his pink umbrella, and the wall rearranged itself, bricks folding and spinning outward in a rippling cascade until an archway stood before them, opening onto a cobblestone street packed with the most extraordinary shops Harry had ever seen. Diagon Alley. Cauldrons stacked outside an apothecary. Owls hooting from a pet shop. Broomsticks in a window, actual flying broomsticks, not toys. A shop called Flourish and Blots with books that moved in the display. Witches and wizards in robes of every color carrying packages, arguing about Quidditch scores, eating ice cream in the morning sun. Harry took it all in, and the ring quietly scanned everything, building a database. Magical energy signatures, wand radiation, enchantment patterns. It cataloged and filed and cross-referenced, and Harry let it work while he followed Hagrid down the street with wide eyes and a grin he couldn't suppress. Magic, actual magic. A whole world of it, hidden right here. They went to Gringotts first, a towering white marble building staffed by goblins, which Hagrid announced like it was the most normal thing in the world. Harry's ring analyzed the goblins, sentient non-human species, high intelligence, metallurgic affinity, no Green Lantern Corps records, and Harry shook the head goblin's hand with genuine respect. His vault was deep underground, accessible by a cart that rattled along rails at a speed that would have made a roller coaster weep. When the door opened, Harry stared at piles of gold, silver and bronze coins, galleons, sickles and nuts, and felt something complicated settle in his chest. His parents had left him this. They'd planned for him to have a future, they just hadn't lived to see it. He filled a bag he didn't count, he had more pressing things to think about. They stopped at a second vault on the way out, Vault 713, Hagrid explained nervously on Dumbledore's business. Hagrid took a small, grubby package out and stuffed it in his coat pocket. The ring scanned it before the pocket closed, a dense magical signature, compact, incredibly old, some kind of artifact. Harry said nothing, but he remembered it. Back on the street, they worked through the supply list efficiently. Robes from Madame Malkin's Harry got fitted while another boy was already on the platform. Blonde, sharp-featured, with the casual arrogance of someone who'd been told he was important since birth. "Hogwarts too," the boy said, eyeing Harry in the mirror. "Yeah, my father says it's a disgrace that they let certain types in, muggle-borns, you know, people who have never even heard of our world," the boy sniffed. "I'm Draco Malfoy, by the way, Harry Potter." The boy's gray eyes went wide, then quickly narrowed again like he was trying not to look impressed. "Oh, Potter, well, you'll find some wizarding families are better than others. I could help you there, show you the right sort." Harry looked at him. The ring hummed quietly, reading nothing dangerous, just a kid, puffed up and performing. Harry had known boys like this at school, Dudley, but with a bigger vocabulary. "I think I'll figure that out for myself," Harry said pleasantly. "But thanks." Malfoy's face tightened and he opened his mouth to say something else, but Madame Malkin told Harry he was done and he hopped off the stool and walked out. He could feel Malfoy's eyes on his back, hot with the particular anger of someone who'd been dismissed instead of fought. Books from Flourish and Blots, potion ingredients from the apothecary, a telescope, scales, files. "Hagrid bought him a snowy owl birthday present," he said gruffly, and Harry named her Hedwig, after a name he'd found in a history of magic while flipping through it in the shop. And then they came to Ollivander's. The shop was narrow, dusty, and crammed floor to ceiling with long, thin boxes. It smelled like old wood and ozone. A bell chimed when they entered and a soft voice came from the shadows between the shelves. "Ah, I wondered when I'd be seeing you, Mr. Potter." An old man emerged, silver-eyed, thin, with an expression of vast and unsettling curiosity. "Garrick Ollivander." The ring scanned him and returned something unusual. Caution: subject possesses elevated sensory awareness, atypical for baseline human. "Mr. Ollivander," Harry said. "It seems like only yesterday your mother and father were in here buying their first wands." Ollivander's pale eyes drifted to Harry's scar, then down to his hand. "And what, may I ask, is that?" He wasn't looking at Harry's scar. He was looking at the ring. Harry held up his hand. The ring glowed faintly. "This is mine." Ollivander stepped closer. His eyes, those strange, luminous eyes, widened, and for the first time his composure cracked. Something like wonder broke through. "That is not magic," he said softly. "Not any magic I know, and I know them all." "It's not magic," Harry agreed. "It's something else." Ollivander stared for a long moment, then shook himself and smiled, a thin, sharp smile. "Well, let's see about a wand then. Fascinating as your accessory may be, you'll still want a wand for school. Let's try yes here." He began pulling boxes off shelves, and what followed was the strangest 20 minutes of Harry's life, which was saying something, given the last 12 hours. Wand after wand, holly, maple, ebony, ash, and each one felt wrong. Not dead exactly, but muted, like trying to hear music through a wall. Harry waved them and sparks flew, but the ring pulsed each time in what felt like mild disapproval. Ollivander noticed. Of course he noticed. His eyes sharpened with each failed attempt, and something grew in his expression, not frustration but fascination. "Tricky customer," he murmured. "I wonder." He disappeared into the back of the shop and returned with a box he held differently from the others, carefully, like it contained something alive. "Holly and phoenix feather, 11 inches, nice and supple." Harry took the wand and the world rang. It wasn't like the other wands, this one answered. Warmth flooded up his arm and the ring flared, not in disapproval this time but in recognition, like two instruments finding the same key. Green and gold sparks erupted from the wand's tip, spiraling around each other in a double helix that lit up the entire shop. Ollivander made a small, satisfied sound, then his face went grave. "Curious," he said, "very curious." "What's curious?" "I remember every wand I've ever sold, Mr. Potter. The phoenix whose tail feather resides in your wand gave another feather, just one other. It is curious that you should be destined for this wand when its brother gave you that scar." The shop was very quiet. Harry looked down at the wand in his left hand, the ring on his right, twin brother to Voldemort's wand, and a weapon from the stars. "I think," Harry said slowly, "that we should expect great things from me, Mr. Ollivander." Ollivander looked at the ring again, and something flickered behind those silver eyes, not fear, but the awareness that he was standing in front of something his 1,000 years of wandlore had never prepared him for. "I have no doubt of it," he said quietly. Harry paid 7 galleons for the wand and left the shop. Outside, the sun was high and Diagon Alley was bustling, and Hagrid was waiting with 2 dripping ice cream cones, and Harry took one and ate it while the ring hummed contentedly on his finger, already processing the magical signature of the Holly wand and integrating it into its threat assessment database. It was, he decided, a very good birthday. That evening, after Hagrid had put him on the train back to Surrey, "I'd take you myself, but I've got to get back to Hogwarts, see Dumbledore's orders." Harry walked into number 4 Privet Drive and found the Dursleys waiting for him in the living room. Vernon in his chair, Petunia on the sofa, Dudley nowhere to be seen, probably hiding upstairs. Vernon opened his mouth. "Don't," Harry said. He wasn't angry. He was tired, the good kind of tired, the kind that comes from a full day and a full stomach. "I'm going to school on September 1st, a magical school. I'll need Dudley's second bedroom to keep my things. That's not a request." Vernon's face purpled. "Now you listen." Harry raised his ring hand, and a 6-foot green construct of a dragon appeared in the living room. It was detailed scales, claws, smoke curling from its nostrils. It was entirely solid, its tail knocked over a vase on the mantelpiece. "That is a request," Harry said again, looking Vernon dead in the eyes. Vernon stared at the dragon. Petunia gripped the sofa cushion so hard her knuckles went white. The second bedroom is Dudley's," Vernon started. The dragon opened its mouth and a tongue of green fire rolled out, hitting absolutely nothing, harming no one, but the heat of it, the light of it, filled the room. "Fine," Vernon whispered. "Fine, take it." Harry dismissed the dragon. "Thanks, Uncle Vernon." He walked upstairs, found the second bedroom full of Dudley's broken toys and discarded electronics, and spent 10 minutes clearing it out with constructs, green hands lifting boxes, a green broom sweeping the floor. He set up his new school things, gave Hedwig water and an owl treat, placed the Holly wand on the desk, and lay down on a real bed for the first time in his memory. The ring pulsed softly on his finger. "Power level 61%. Power battery arrival 1 hours. Wake me when it gets here," Harry murmured. He was asleep in seconds. The power battery arrived at 11:47 p.m., punching through the atmosphere in a column of green light that every satellite in orbit registered and could not explain. It phased through the roof of number 4 Privet Drive without disturbing a single tile and settled on the floor of Harry's new bedroom, a lantern-shaped object about a foot tall, glowing with the concentrated willpower of 1 billion lanterns across the history of the core. Harry woke, sat up, and looked at it. "All right," he said. He held out his ring, and the oath came without effort, not from memory but from somewhere deeper. The place the ring lived inside him. "In brightest day, in blackest night, no evil shall escape my sight. Let those who worship evil's might beware my power, Green Lantern's light." The battery flared, the ring flared, and for a moment every light and little winging flickered green. Power level 100%, Harry grinned. The next month passed fast. Harry trained, not at any school or camp, in the sky, mostly at night, over the English countryside where nobody could see him. He pushed the ring's limits and found, to his growing astonishment, that the limits were basically wherever his imagination ended. He built constructs, swords, shields, hammers, walls, cages, bridges, catapults, a full-size replica of a fighter jet which he flew over the Atlantic at Mach 3 and then dismissed, laughing, over Greenland. He practiced precision, threading a construct needle through the eye of a real needle. He practiced speed, raising a shield in the time between a raindrop leaving a cloud and hitting the ground. He practiced power, punching a construct fist into a cliff face on an uninhabited Scottish island and reducing it to gravel. The ring taught him as he went. It was an AI of sorts, not sentient but responsive, adaptive, and deeply knowledgeable. It showed him combat techniques from 1,000 species. It showed him the history of the core. It showed him what the other lanterns could do, and it pushed him to match them. Harry learned fast. The ring had chosen well. He also read every book from his school list cover to cover. A history of magic was dry but useful. Fantastic beasts and where to find them was genuinely interesting. The standard Book of Spells, Grade 1, was fascinating. Magic worked on entirely different principles than the ring. The ring was willpower. You imagined something, and if your will was strong enough, it became real. Magic was channeled, structured, almost coded. Wands, incantations, ingredients. Like the difference between painting freehand and painting by numbers. Harry wanted to understand both. The ring was power, magic was a system. Systems could be learned, improved, combined. He practiced the first-year spells with his wand in the evenings. Lumos came easily, light after all was kind of his thing. Wingardium Leviosa was trickier, requiring a specific kind of focused intent that was different from willing a construct into existence. The ring helped by analyzing the magical energy flows and feeding back to Harry in real time like a heads-up display for spellcasting. By the end of August, he could do every spell in the first-year curriculum. He didn't tell anyone. Not because he was hiding, because there was nobody to tell. The Dursleys avoided him like he was radioactive. Hedwig was good company but limited in conversation. And the ring, for all its knowledge, wasn't a person. He was lonely, he realized. That hadn't changed. The cupboard was gone, the hunger was gone, the fear was gone, but the loneliness was the same shape it had always been. He thought about Hogwarts. About meeting other kids his age, magical kids, kids who grew up in a world he'd only just discovered, kids who might not look at him like he was a freak. September 1st couldn't come fast enough. It came on a Tuesday. Harry woke early, dressed in jeans and a t-shirt. The ring could generate the uniform whenever he needed it, packed his trunk and let the Dursleys drive him to King's Cross Station in the most uncomfortable car ride of his life. Vernon didn't speak. Petunia stared out the window. Dudley sat as far from Harry as the backseat allowed and made whimpering sounds every time Harry moved. They dropped him at the station and pulled away without a word. Harry watched the car vanish into London traffic and felt nothing in particular. You can't miss what you never had. Platform 9 3/4. Hagrid's instructions had been simple: run at the barrier between platforms 9 and 10. The ring confirmed, a spatial displacement field, localized, cleverly hidden. Harry didn't run. He walked through the barrier like it was an open door, his ring parting the field like a curtain, and emerged onto a bustling platform where a scarlet steam engine sat under a sign that read Hogwarts Express. Hundreds of families, kids hauling trunks, owls in cages, cats twining between legs, parents hugging, mothers crying. Harry stood at the edge of the platform and watched, and the loneliness surged and receded and left something like determination behind. He loaded his trunk and found an empty compartment near the back of the train. Hedwig hooted from her cage. Harry sat by the window and watched the platform. The door slid open. A gangly red-headed boy stood in the doorway looking nervous. He had a smudge of dirt on his nose and a rat in his pocket. "Anyone sitting here?" the boy asked. "Everywhere else is full." "Go ahead," Harry said. The boy sat down, sighed with relief, and stuck out his hand. Ron Weasley. Harry Potter." Ron's mouth fell open. "You're really, have you got the—" His eyes went to Harry's forehead. Harry lifted his fringe, showing the scar. Ron stared. "Wicked," Ron breathed. Harry laughed. He couldn't help it. The sheer, uncomplicated awe on Ron's face was so different from the leaky cauldron sycophants that it circled all the way back around to genuine. "Yeah, I get that a lot, apparently." Ron turned red. "Sorry, it's just you're famous, mate. Everyone knows about you." "So I hear." Harry settled back in his seat. "I didn't know about any of it until a month ago. Grew up with muggles." "No way, what was that like?" "Bad," Harry said simply. "What's it like growing up in a wizarding family?" Ron launched into a description of life as the sixth of 7 children in the Weasley household, hand-me-down robes, an enchanted house that was barely held together, 5 older brothers who'd all done something impressive at Hogwarts and left him with a lot to live up to. He talked fast, gesturing with his hands, interrupting himself to point out things through the window. He was, Harry decided within 5 minutes, completely honest, thoroughly unimpressed with himself, and the most normal person Harry had met in the wizarding world. Harry liked him immediately. The train pulled out of the station. London gave way to countryside, green fields, rolling hills, the occasional cow looking startled by a speeding scarlet locomotive. A witch came by with a trolley full of magical sweets, and Harry bought the lot, partly because he'd never had spending money before, and partly because Ron had pulled out a smashed set of homemade sandwiches with an expression of deep resignation. "Have some," Harry said, dumping chocolate frogs and Bertie Bott's every flavor beans and pumpkin pasties across the seat. "I've never had any of these." Ron stared at him, then at the pile of sweets, then grinned so wide his ears moved. "Mate, you're all right." They ate their way through the pile while Ron explained Quidditch. Harry's ring immediately began projecting tactical analyses that he quickly dismissed before Ron saw and Harry told carefully edited stories about living with the Dursleys. He didn't mention the ring. Not yet, not out of secrecy, out of timing. He wanted Ron to know him before knowing the lantern. The compartment door opened again. A girl with bushy brown hair and an air of determined authority leaned in. "Has anyone seen a toad?" "A boy named Neville's lost one." "No," Ron said. The girl looked at Harry, then at Ron, then at the half-eaten sweets and seemed to be deciding whether to be disappointed in them. Then her eyes caught the ring. "What's that?" she said, stepping fully into the compartment. She had a sharp, quick way of looking at things, observational, cataloging. Harry recognized it because the ring did the same thing. "A ring," Harry said. "It's glowing." "It does that." She narrowed her eyes. "I've read about magical jewelry. Is it a mood ring?" "No, those don't actually glow." "Is it enchanted?" "I've read 1,000 magical herbs and fungi and magical drafts and potions, and none of them mention anything that—" "It's not magical," Harry said. "Then what is it?" Harry looked at her for a moment. The ring pulsed, not a warning, just a gentle hum. "I'm Harry Potter," he said. "This is Ron Weasley. What's your name?" The redirection threw her for exactly half a second. "Hermione Granger," she said. "I'm Muggle-born. Neither of my parents are magical. I've read all the course books, of course, and a few extra." "Are you really Harry Potter? I've read about you in Modern Magical History, the Rise and Fall of the Dark Arts and Great Wizarding Events of the 20th Century, Harry recited. "Yeah, I've read those too. They get about half of it right." Hermione blinked. Clearly, she hadn't expected him to have read anything. "Oh, well, that's good." Ron gave Harry a sideways look that communicated very clearly she's mental. Harry suppressed a grin. "Sit down if you want, Hermione. We've got plenty of food." She hesitated, glanced up the corridor as if the toad might materialize, then sat down. Within 10 minutes she and Ron were arguing about whether Quidditch was sport or madness, and Harry listened with something warm expanding in his chest, a feeling he didn't have a name for because he'd never felt it before. Maybe friendship always started like this, with a compartment on a train and someone saying, "Sit down if you want." The door slid open one more time. Draco Malfoy stood in the corridor, flanked by two large boys who looked like matching bookends, thick, dull-eyed, cracking their knuckles. "They're saying all down the train that Harry Potter's in this compartment," Malfoy said. He looked at Ron and his lip curled. "Red hair and a hand-me-down robe, you must be a Weasley." He turned to Harry. "We met in Diagon Alley. I told you some wizarding families are better than others. I can help you there." He extended his hand. Harry looked at it. He looked at Ron, whose ears had gone red. He looked at Hermione, whose chin had lifted. "No," Harry said. Malfoy's hand hung in the air. "What?" "I said number. I think I can tell the wrong sort for myself." Harry held Malfoy's gaze, and the ring, responding to his emotional state, flickered just once, a pulse of green light that reflected in Malfoy's suddenly wide eyes. "And Draco, if you want to insult my friends, do it outside the door. The compartment's a bit crowded already." Malfoy's jaw worked. One of his bookends cracked his knuckles again. For a long, tense second, nothing happened. Then Harry's ring glowed brighter, just slightly, a gentle escalation like a dog raising its hackles, and one of the large boys took a step back. "Let's go," Malfoy muttered, and the three of them left. Ron let out a breath. That was Draco Malfoy. His dad was a Death Eater, one of you-know-whose lot. What was that light? Harry looked at his ring, then at Ron and Hermione, both staring at him with wide eyes and the kind of curiosity that demands answers. He could deflect. He could lie. He could say, "I'll tell you later," and kick the can down the road. But these were, he thought, the first real friends he'd ever had. And the ring had chosen him for his willpower, and it took willpower to be honest when lying would be easier. "Okay," he said, "this is going to sound completely mad, but before I got my Hogwarts letter, I got something else." He held up his hand. The ring blazed to life, and the compartment filled with green light, and Ron dropped his chocolate frog, and Hermione leaned forward with her eyes the size of dinner plates. "This is a Green Lantern power ring," Harry said. "It came from space. It chose me because apparently I'm stubborn enough to qualify." He grinned. "Let me show you what it does." He held out his hand, and a construct took shape above his palm, not a weapon, not a dragon. A miniature Hogwarts Express, perfect in every detail, trailing green smoke as it chugged in a circle above his fingers. Ron made a sound like someone had stepped on him. Hermione's hand shot up to her mouth. "It runs on willpower," Harry said. "Anything I can imagine I can make real. Flight shields, energy blasts, all of it. I'm basically—" He paused, searching for the right word. "I'm a space cop for this sector of the galaxy. Sector 2814. Silence. Ron spoke first. "That," he said, his voice cracking, "is the coolest thing I've ever heard." Hermione spoke second. "That's impossible." "The energy requirements alone, the construct matrix, the physics, how does it interface with your neural?" Hermione. "Yes, breathe," she breathed. "Then, can I study it?" Harry laughed. He couldn't help it. "Yeah," he said. "Yeah, you can study it." And Ron, he turned to the red-headed boy who was still staring with his mouth open. "We're going to be friends, real friends, not because of the ring or the scar, because you sat down in this compartment with a smudge on your nose and offered to share a terrible sandwich. All right?" Ron wiped his nose, found the smudge, and went red. "All right," he said. "Yeah, all right." The Hogwarts Express raced northward through the gathering dark, carrying its cargo of young witches and wizards toward a castle in the Scottish Highlands. In the last compartment, 3 children sat surrounded by green light and sweet wrappers, talking fast and laughing, and one of them wore a ring that burned like a green star on his finger. Outside the window, the sun sank below the hills and the sky turned deep violet and then black, and then the stars came out, thousands of them, sharp and clear above the Scottish countryside. Harry looked at them and felt the ring hum in recognition. Out there somewhere, other lanterns were flying their sectors, fighting their fights, holding the line. He was part of that now. He was part of something vast and ancient and good. But he was also part of this compartment, these 2 people, this train hurtling toward a castle full of magic and mystery and a dead man's name that everyone was afraid to say. Hermione had pulled out a notebook and was writing furiously, pausing every 30 seconds to fire another question at Harry. "So the constructs are hard light projections, solid, you could build a bridge and walk across it." "Built one over the Thames last week," Harry said. "At 3 in the morning, held it for 20 minutes. And the power source, you said a battery, like a literal battery." "A lantern, actually, shaped like one anyway. It's connected to something called the Central Power Battery on the planet Oa, which is basically a giant reservoir of willpower energy collected from the whole universe." Hermione's pen stopped. She looked up at him with an expression that was half wonder and half the specific frustration of someone whose entire model of reality had just been thrown out the window. "Harry, do you realize what you're describing? You're describing an emotional energy framework that operates on a completely different axis from magic. This is an entirely separate physics." "Yeah," Harry said, "that's kind of the point." Ron, who had been quietly working through his 4th pumpkin pasty with the dazed expression of someone whose brain was still buffering, swallowed and said, "So can you, blow up a mountain?" Hermione shot him a look. "What? It's a valid question." "I haven't tried," Harry admitted. "But probably yeah." Ron leaned back and whistled low through his teeth. "My brothers are never going to believe this. Fred and George are going to lose their minds." "Maybe don't tell everyone right away," Harry said, not hiding, just strategic. "I'd rather people see it than hear about it secondhand." "Fair point," Ron said. "So when are you going to show everyone?" Harry looked out the window. In the far distance, high on a cliff above a dark lake, lights flickered, warm and golden against the night sky. A castle. Towers, turrets, battlements. It looked like something out of a medieval painting, except it was real and it was waiting for him. "When the moment's right," Harry said, "I'll know it when I see it." The train began to slow. A voice echoed through the corridors. "We will be reaching Hogwarts in 5 minutes' time. Please leave your luggage on the train. It will be taken to the school separately." And the 3 of them scrambled to their feet. Ron stuffed Scabbers the rat deeper into his pocket. Hermione straightened her robes and tucked her notebook away. Harry let the ring dim to almost nothing, not dark, just quiet. A faint green shimmer around his finger, like an ember waiting for breath. The platform at Hogsmeade Station was chaos. Hundreds of students spilling out of carriages, older kids heading toward horseless carriages on the road, and Hagrid's voice booming above it all. Furs years over here." "All right there, Harry." Harry grinned up at him. "All right, Hagrid." They followed him down a steep, narrow path through dark trees to the edge of a vast black lake. A fleet of small boats waited at the shore. "No more'n 4 to boat," Hagrid called, climbing into one that sank alarmingly under his weight. Harry, Ron, and Hermione took a boat with a round-faced boy who introduced himself as Neville Longbottom, the Toad Loser, and they pushed off from the shore and glided across the dark water in silence, because when the castle came into view nobody could speak. Hogwarts, it was enormous, it was impossible. It was 1,000 years of magic layered on top of itself, turrets and towers and bridges and buttresses, all of it lit from within by 10,000 candles, reflected in the black mirror of the lake. The ring went absolutely wild, scanning, analyzing, cataloging magical signatures so dense and interwoven that Harry could feel them through the ring like a low vibration in his bones. This place was alive with power, ancient, deep, and vast. Harry looked at it and thought, this is where my parents learned magic. This is where they fell in love. This is where everything started. And then, quieter underneath, this is where I'm going to find out why they died. The boats docked at an underground harbor, and Hagrid led them up stone steps into an entrance hall so large you could have fit the Dursleys' entire house inside it. A tall, stern witch in emerald robes met them at the top. "Professor McGonagall," she said, and she looked at them the way a general looks at new recruits, assessing, not unkind but expecting a great deal. She gave them a speech about the 4 houses, Gryffindor, Hufflepuff, Ravenclaw, Slytherin, and about the sorting ceremony, and then she left them in a side chamber to wait. The first years were terrified, some were whispering about tests and challenges. Ron was muttering about wrestling a troll, his brother's joke apparently. Neville looked like he might be sick. Harry stood still in breath. The ring was warm on his hand. Whatever came next, he was ready. The ghosts helped oddly. They drifted through the wall mid-conversation, silvery, translucent, apparently arguing about someone named Peeves, and the first years collectively lost their minds. Harry watched a fat ghost in a rough drift through Ron's shoulder and had to physically press his lips together to keep from laughing. Then McGonagall came back and led them into the Great Hall. 4 long tables packed with students, thousands of candles floating in midair. A ceiling that looked like the night sky. Hermione whispered, "It's bewitched to look like the sky outside. I read about it in Hogwarts, a history," and at the head of the hall, a table full of adults who had to be the teachers. Harry spotted Hagrid, gave him a nod, spotted the turban, Quirrell, and felt the ring go cold again, that same spike from the leaky cauldron. And at the center of the table, an old man with a long silver beard and half-moon spectacles who radiated calm authority like a campfire radiated heat. Dumbledore had to be. The ring scanned him. The scan came back dense, layered, and partly opaque, the first time the ring had failed to fully read a human. Harry noted that and filed it away with everything else. McGonagall placed a stool at the front of the hall. On the stool she placed a hat, old, patched, frayed. The hall went silent. Then a rip near the brim opened and the hat sang. It sang about the 4 founders, the 4 houses, the qualities each valued. Harry listened and thought about where he'd end up. Gryffindor, probably his parents had been Gryffindors, but the ring didn't care about tradition. The ring cared about will. The song ended. McGonagall unrolled a scroll. "When I call your name, you will put on the hat and sit on the stool to be sorted." Abbot Hannah, a pink-faced girl, stumbled forward and put on the hat. A moment's pause. "Hufflepuff," the hat shouted, and one of the tables erupted in cheers. They went through the list. Hermione went up, jammed the hat on her head, and sat rigidly for almost a full minute before the hat shouted Gryffindor, and she practically ran to the table, face flushed with relief. Neville went to Gryffindor too, after an even longer deliberation. Malfoy barely had the hat on his head before it screamed Slytherin. He swaggered to the far table with a smirk. "Potter, Harry," the hall erupted in whispers. Every head turned. Harry stood, walked to the stool, and sat down. McGonagall lowered the hat onto his head and the brim fell over his eyes, and then oh my, oh my, oh my, the voice was in his head, not like the ring. This was different, curious, ancient, amused. "Well, Mr. Potter, I've been looking forward to this. 1,000 years I've sat on this stool and I have never encountered a mind like yours." Harry thought, "Can you see the ring? I can see what the ring has done to you, or rather, what it's found in you. The willpower, my word, it's like staring into a furnace. I could sort you into any house and you'd thrive. Ravenclaw, for that mind, you've consumed knowledge at a rate I rarely see. Hufflepuff, for that loyalty I can feel building toward the friends you've just made. Slytherin, not Slytherin," Harry thought. "Are you sure? The ring chose you for your ambition as much as your courage. Slytherin could make you great. The ring chose me for my willpower," Harry corrected. "And I don't need a house to make me great. I need one that fits." The hat was quiet for a moment. Then it chuckled, a dry, rustling sound like old pages turning. "You know, the last person who talked to me like that was Albus Dumbledore. He was 11 too. Very well, Mr. Potter, if you're sure. Gryffindor." The Gryffindor table exploded. Harry pulled off the hat, caught Dumbledore's eye. The old man gave him a small, unreadable smile and walked to his new table where Ron was saving him a seat and Hermione was clapping so hard her hands were blurring. He sat down. Ron thumped him on the back. The Weasley twins, Fred and George, identical redheads with matching grins, started chanting, "We got Potter, we got Potter." And the whole table took it up, and Harry sat in the middle of it and let himself feel it, the warmth, the welcome, the belonging. The ring glowed on his finger, soft and steady. He was home. Ron Weasley joined him at the table 2 minutes later, red-faced and beaming, and the sorting ended and Dumbledore stood to give a speech that was 4 words long: nitwit, blubber, oddment, tweak. And then the tables filled with food. Mountains of it. Roast beef, roast chicken, pork chops, lamb chops, sausages, steak, potatoes in every conceivable form, vegetables, gravy, bread, pudding. Harry stared at it and felt something crack in his chest. Years and years of scraps from the Dursleys' table, of going to bed hungry, of watching Dudley eat 3 helpings while Harry got half a grapefruit. He filled his plate. He ate. He ate until he was full, which was a sensation so unfamiliar it took him a moment to recognize it. Ron was telling him about his brothers, Bill in Egypt, Charlie in Romania working with dragons, Percy the prefect right over there, bit of a prat honestly, and Fred and George, who were inventors, troublemakers, and the funniest people Ron knew. Hermione was quizzing a ghost called Nearly Headless Nick about the history of the castle. Neville was talking to a boy named Seamus Finnegan about whether his mother was a witch or his father. It was noisy and chaotic and alive, and Harry sat in the middle of it with green light humming on his finger and thought, very clearly, I am never going back to that cupboard. I am never going to be hungry again. And anyone who tries to hurt the people in this room is going to have to go through me. The feast ended. Dumbledore stood again, gave a few start-of-term notices. The Forbidden Forest was forbidden, magic was not to be used in the corridors, and the third-floor corridor on the right-hand side was out of bounds to anyone who did not wish to die a very painful death. Harry's ring flickered. He looked at Dumbledore. The old man's eyes, behind those half-moon spectacles, swept the hall, and for just a moment, just a fraction of a second, they met Harry's. Something passed between them, not words, not magic, just an acknowledgement. I know you're not an ordinary boy, and you know I know. Harry held the gaze steady and calm until Dumbledore looked away. Then they sang the school song, a cacophonous mess that Fred and George performed as a funeral march, and the prefects led the first years to their dormitories. Gryffindor Tower was high up in the castle, behind a portrait of a fat lady in a pink dress who demanded a password, Caput Draconis, and swung open to reveal a round, cozy common room full of squashy armchairs and a crackling fire. The boys' dormitory was a circular room at the top of a tower, with 5 four-poster beds hung with deep red curtains. Harry found his trunk at the foot of one bed, Hedwig's cage on the windowsill, and his power battery, which had followed him as it always did, tucked unobtrusively behind his trunk, disguised by the ring's perception filter as a battered green lamp. Ron collapsed on the next bed over. "This is brilliant," he said to the ceiling. "This is absolutely brilliant." Harry lay down and stared at the canopy of his four-poster bed. Red and gold, Gryffindor colors, his parents' colors. "Yeah," he said, "it really is." Neville was already snoring. Seamus and a boy named Dean Thomas were whispering about football. Ron's breathing slowed and evened out. Harry lay awake a little longer. The ring glowed faintly in the dark, a green point of light in a room full of red. He thought about the third-floor corridor. About the package Hagrid had taken from Gringotts, about Quirrell and the cold spike and Dumbledore's knowing eyes. There were secrets in this castle, layers of them. And somewhere, woven through it all, the shadow of a man named Voldemort who had killed Harry's parents and tried to kill Harry and failed, and who Harry was certain, with a certainty that went deeper than the ring, was not as gone as everyone wanted to believe. Harry closed his eyes. The ring dimmed. Tomorrow he'd start learning magic. Tomorrow he'd start pulling threads. Tomorrow the wizarding world would begin to understand what it meant that a Green Lantern had come to Hogwarts. But tonight, for the first time in his life, Harry Potter fell asleep in a room full of friends in a place that felt like home, with a light on his hand that would never go out. He slept without dreaming. Chapter 1 End. Chapter 2. In blackest night, Harry woke to sunlight streaming through the tower window and Ron Weasley's alarm clock screaming like a banshee. Not metaphorically, the thing actually screamed, a tiny enchanted mouth on the clock face shrieking until Ron slapped it off the nightstand and it clattered under the bed, still wailing. "Bloody thing," Ron muttered into his pillow. "Mum enchanted it, can't turn it off." Harry sat up, already alert. The ring had woken him 10 minutes earlier, a gentle pulse at dawn like a second heartbeat. He'd lain there in the quiet, listening to the castle. Hogwarts wasn't silent, even at 6 in the morning. It creaked, groaned, hummed. Pipes rattled, portraits murmured in their sleep. Somewhere deep below, the ring detected a low magical resonance, steady, rhythmic, like the building itself was breathing. A living castle. He was going to school inside a living castle. He dressed quickly while the other boys stumbled around the dormitory in various states of consciousness. Neville couldn't find his left shoe. Seamus set his curtains on fire, trying a drying spell on his socks. Dean stood at the window staring at the grounds with the blank, overwhelmed expression of a Muggleborn seeing it all for the first time in daylight. Harry joined him for a moment. The view was staggering, green lawns sloping down to the Black Lake mountains beyond, the Forbidden Forest a dark smudge along the western edge. In October, mist clung to the lower grounds, and through it Harry could see a huge man, Hagrid, crossing toward a small wooden hut with smoke curling from its chimney. Somewhere in the forest, something howled and a flock of birds erupted from the canopy. "Mental," Dean said. "Absolutely mental." "Yeah," Harry agreed, grinning. "Come on, breakfast." The Great Hall was already half full when they came down. Harry slid onto the bench next to Hermione, who had a plate of toast in one hand and a schedule in the other and looked like she'd been awake for hours. "We've got Transfiguration first with McGonagall, then Charms with Flitwick after break," and she paused, scanning further down. "Double potions with Slytherin this afternoon with Professor Snape. Fred says Snape's horrible," Ron said through a mouthful of eggs. "Favors Slytherin, hates everyone else, especially Gryffindors." Harry poured himself pumpkin juice. He can hate whoever he wants, doesn't change what I'm here to do. Which is? Hermione asked. Learn everything. Harry looked at the staff table. Snape was there, a thin, sallow man in black robes with greasy hair and a hooked nose, eating nothing, watching the hall with dark, unreadable eyes. As if sensing Harry's attention, Snape's gaze snapped to him. Their eyes met across the length of the great hall, and something flared in Snape's expression, not curiosity, not hostility. Something older and more personal. Something that looked like it hurt. The ring flickered on Harry's finger. Not the cold spike he'd felt with Quirrell, something different. A tangle of emotional signatures, so complex the ring couldn't parse them cleanly. Grief, rage, guilt, and underneath it all, a love so damaged it had curdled into something barely recognizable. Harry held the man's stare for 3 seconds, then looked away. Whatever Snape's problem was, Harry wasn't going to flinch from it. Harry, Hermione said carefully, your ring is glowing. He glanced down. Green light was bleeding through his fingers, painting the table. A few nearby students were staring. Harry relaxed his hand and the light dimmed. Sorry, it does that when I'm thinking hard. You should really let me run some tests, Hermione said, in the tone of someone who'd been thinking about nothing else for 12 hours. The energy output alone, if I could correlate it with known magical wavelengths. After classes, Harry said. Promise. Ron leaned over. Mate, is every day going to be like this because I'm going to need more toast? Transfiguration was in a high-ceilinged classroom on the 2nd floor with desks arranged in rows and a large blackboard covered in diagrams that hurt to look at. Professor McGonagall was already there when they arrived, or rather, a tabby cat was sitting on her desk, perfectly still, watching the students file in with an intensity that was slightly unnerving. Harry saw the cat and the ring immediately tagged it. Animagus transformation detected. Human consciousness in animal form. He said nothing and took his seat, and when McGonagall transformed back into herself, cat to woman in a seamless ripple that drew gasps from the entire class, he clapped politely while everyone else sat stunned. McGonagall's eyes narrowed at his lack of surprise, but she moved on. The lesson was matchstick to needle. Simple in concept, brutal in execution. Magic Harry was learning required a very specific kind of mental discipline. You couldn't just want the match to change, you had to understand on some deep intuitive level how it could change. The wand was a channel, the incantation was a key. But the real work happened in the space between thought and reality. Different from the ring, completely different. The ring was pure will, imagine it, believe it, and it was. Magic was more like negotiation. You were asking the universe to rearrange itself, and you had to ask in exactly the right way. Harry held the match between his fingers, pointed his wand, and said the incantation. The match shivered, thinned, and turned silver from the tip down. Not a complete transformation, the head was still red, still wood, but more progress than anyone else in the room. Hermione managed it 3 tries later, producing a perfect needle. Ron's match caught fire. Neville's turned into a twig. McGonagall walked the rows, correcting grips and pronunciations, and when she reached Harry, she stopped. She looked at his half-transformed match, then at him, and her stern mouth did something that was almost a smile. Your mother had a gift for transfiguration, she said quietly. I see it's hereditary, 5 points to Gryffindor. She moved on. Harry looked down at the silver match and felt the ring pulse softly like a heartbeat. After transfiguration came charms, taught by a tiny wizard named Professor Flitwick, who stood on a stack of books to see over his desk and fell off them when he reached Harry's name on the roll call. Harry liked him immediately. Flitwick taught with infectious enthusiasm, bouncing around the classroom, praising every small success, turning failures into lessons without making anyone feel stupid. They worked on basic wand movements, and Harry practiced the swish and flick until his wrist ached because the ring could give him shortcuts, but he didn't want shortcuts. He wanted to understand magic from the ground up. Hermione, predictably, was the best in the class. Ron, less predictably, had a natural feel for the wand movements. His technique was sloppy but instinctive, like a musician who plays by ear. Then came lunch, which Harry spent in the library with Hermione, looking up everything they could find about Hogwarts' 3rd-floor corridor. Dumbledore said it was out of bounds, Hermione said, frowning over a dusty map of the castle. He said we'd die a very painful death, which means there's something there worth dying for, Harry said, or worth killing for. Either way, I want to know what it is. Harry, he said it was out of bounds. He also put it in a school full of children and basically dared them to go look. That's either incredibly careless or incredibly deliberate. I'm betting on deliberate. Hermione opened her mouth, closed it, and pulled the map closer. The 3rd-floor corridor was sealed off over the summer. According to the Hogwarts maintenance logs, yes, I found the maintenance logs, they're in the restricted section index. There was a major enchantment installation in July. Multiple professors involved. And Hagrid took something from Gringotts the day he picked me up, Harry said. Vault 713. The ring scanned it. Small, very old, very powerful. Whatever it was, they moved it here. So there's a powerful magical artifact hidden in the school behind protections set up by the teachers in a corridor that students are told to avoid. Hermione's eyes had that sharp, analytical gleam. That's either a vault or a trap. Or both, Harry said. Ron found them in the library 20 minutes later, carrying a sandwich and looking offended. You're both mental. It's lunch, the one good thing about today, and you're spending it with books. We're investigating a potential security threat to the school, Hermione said primly. During lunch, Harry grinned. Come on, we've got potions next and I want to eat something first. The potions classroom was in the dungeons, cold, damp, and lit by torches that cast more shadow than light. Jars of preserved things lined the walls, floating in murky liquid. The desks were heavy wood, scarred with years of spills and burns. The whole place smelled like formaldehyde and old copper. The Slytherins were already there when the Gryffindors arrived. Malfoy sat in the front row, flanked by Crabbe and Goyle, wearing the smug expression of someone on home turf. He caught Harry's eye and smirked. Harry sat in the second row between Ron and Hermione and waited. The door banged open. Snape swept in like a storm front, black robes billowing, face set in a mask of cold authority. He didn't walk to the front of the room, he stalked, each step deliberate, and when he turned to face the class, the torchlight caught his eyes and turned them into flat black discs. There will be no foolish wand-waving or silly incantations in this class, he said. His voice was low, precise, and carried without effort. As such, I don't expect many of you to appreciate the subtle science and exact art that is potion making. However, for those select few who possess the predisposition, I can teach you to bewitch the mind and ensnare the senses. I can tell you how to bottle fame, brew glory, and even put a stopper in death. Silence. Harry watched him. The ring was quiet, no cold spike, no warning, just that same complex tangle of emotions muted now behind walls of discipline. Snape's eyes found Harry. Ah, yes, he said softly. Harry Potter, our new celebrity. Malfoy sniggered, Crabbe and Goyle grunted appreciatively. Snape stepped closer. Tell me, Potter, what would I get if I added powdered root of asphodel to an infusion of wormhood? Harry met his eyes. The Draught of Living Death, a powerful sleeping potion. It's in Chapter 2 of Magical Drafts and Potions by Arsenius Jigger. Something flickered behind Snape's mask. He hadn't expected that. Where would you look if I told you to find me a bezoar? The stomach of a goat. It cures most poisons. You keep one in the store cupboard to your left, third shelf behind the jar of lacewing flies. The ring had scanned the room the moment they'd walked in. There's also one in your desk drawer. Back up, I assume. The classroom was dead silent. Snape stared at him and the mask cracked just for a second, revealing something raw and startled underneath. And what, Snape said very quietly, is the difference between monkshood and wolfsbane? They're the same plant, also called aconite, used in wolfsbane potion, which is brewed for, Harry paused, considering, people with certain conditions. He didn't say werewolves. The ring had fed him the connection, but something about Snape's expression told him discretion was warranted. Snape held his gaze for a long, long moment. The class barely breathed. Well, Snape said, it seems fame isn't everything. He turned sharply and walked back to the front. Why aren't the rest of you writing this down? Quill scrambled. Ron exhaled through his teeth. Hermione was already 3 lines into her notes. The lesson continued, and it was clear within minutes that Snape was both brilliant and deliberately unfair. He praised Malfoy's mediocre potion and ignored Hermione's perfect one. He deducted a point from Neville for breathing too loudly near his cauldron. He swept past Ron's desk and made a cutting remark about the color of his potion that left Ron red-eared and furious. But he didn't touch Harry, not directly. He circled Harry's desk twice during the brewing phase, looking for something to criticize, and found nothing. Harry's potion was textbook perfect because the ring had analyzed the recipe at a molecular level and fed him real-time adjustments. Snape looked at the potion, looked at Harry, and something tightened in his jaw. He moved on. After class, as students filed out, Snape's voice cut through the noise. Potter, stay. Ron hesitated. Hermione grabbed his arm. Harry gave them both a slight nod. Go, I'm fine, and they left reluctantly. The dungeon emptied, the torches guttered. Snape stood behind his desk with his arms folded, and Harry stood in front of it with his hands at his sides, and the room was very quiet. You read the textbooks, Snape said. I read all the textbooks. You read ahead. I read everything. Snape's lip curled. How very studious of you. Tell me, Potter, is this your attempt to prove something, to live up to your famous name? No, Harry said, it's my attempt to learn potion, which is, I believe, the point of the class. Snape leaned forward. Your father was arrogant, strutting around the castle like he owned it. A mediocre student with a talent for bullying and an inflated sense of his own importance. You have his face. That insufferable face. But those are, he stopped, swallowed, something broke behind his eyes and was quickly, viciously suppressed. Your mother's eyes. The ring read the emotional spike, grief so sharp and sudden it was like a blade, and Harry understood in a flash of intuition that had nothing to do with alien technology. Snape had loved his mother. I'm not my father, Harry said, not angry, not defensive, just clear. And I'm not here to relive his school days, I'm here to learn. If you can teach me, I'll be the best student in this classroom. If you can't get past whose face I'm wearing, that's your problem, not mine. Snape stared at him. The dungeon torches flickered. A jar on the shelf behind Snape rattled softly as if the contents were reacting to the tension in the room. Get out, Snape said. His voice was barely a whisper. Harry left. He didn't look back. In the corridor outside, Ron and Hermione were waiting with matching expressions of worry. What did he say? Ron demanded. He talked about my parents. Harry started walking. The ring hummed softly, processing, filing, building a profile. He's not a threat, he's just in pain. Hermione fell into step beside him. You handled that really well. I've had practice with people who hate me for no good reason, Harry said. Snape's at least got a reason, even if it's a stupid one. Ron shook his head. You're weird, mate, in a good way, but definitely weird. The first week at Hogwarts established a rhythm. Mornings were classes, transfiguration, charms, herbology, which Harry found genuinely interesting. The ring's botanical database went haywire in Professor Sprout's greenhouses. History of magic taught by a ghost named Binns who was so boring the ring auto-dimmed to conserve power. And astronomy on Wednesday nights. Afternoons were free study, and Harry split them between the library with Hermione and the grounds with Ron, who was slowly, patiently teaching him about the wizarding world in a way no textbook could. The unwritten rules, the cultural assumptions, the thousand small things that everyone born into magic took for granted. Harry trained with the ring every night. After the dormitory quieted, he'd slip out to the astronomy tower, the highest point in the castle, open to the sky, and fly. Not on a broomstick. Just fly straight up into the dark until Hogwarts was a cluster of lights below and the stars were everywhere. He'd practice constructs, complex ones, layered ones, constructs within constructs. A green knight that could sword fight on its own. A maze he could reconfigure in real time. A full-scale replica of the solar system, planets orbiting in miniature around a tiny green sun. He pushed his creativity because the ring had taught him that willpower alone wasn't enough. A lantern who could only make fists and walls was a lantern who'd lose to the first enemy with imagination. He also explored. Hogwarts was enormous and most of it wasn't on any map. Corridors that moved, staircases that rearranged themselves on Fridays, doors that pretended to be walls, walls that pretended to be doors. Harry let the ring map it all, building a three-dimensional model in his mind that grew more detailed every night. He found the kitchens, behind a painting of a fruit bowl. You tickled the pear, the room of requirement. The ring detected the dimensional fold on his third night, though he didn't figure out how to open it until the fifth, and a dozen secret passages that led to various parts of the grounds and beyond. On Thursday night he went to the third-floor corridor. It was past midnight. The castle was quiet except for the usual creaks and distant portrait conversations. Harry flew the ring to the third floor, not walking, floating 6 inches off the ground to avoid creaky floorboards, and stood before the locked door at the end of the corridor. The ring scanned through the door. What it found made Harry's eyebrows rise. A room. Large. And inside the room a dog, not just a dog with 3 heads, each the size of a dustbin, currently asleep on the stone floor. It was chained to the wall and sitting on a trapdoor. The trapdoor was sealed with multiple magical signatures, at least 6 different casters, each contributing a different layer of protection. Under the trapdoor, the ring detected descending chambers, each with its own unique magical profile. At the very bottom, something burned with a signature Harry recognized from Gringotts, the same artifact Hagrid had retrieved from Vault 713. Harry stood outside the door and thought. A 3-headed dog guarding a trapdoor leading to a series of enchanted chambers containing a powerful artifact, all hidden in a school full of children behind a door that a first-year unlocking charm could open. This wasn't security. This was a test. Someone had designed this gauntlet to be passable, difficult, dangerous, but passable. Which meant either someone expected to need to retrieve the artifact quickly, or someone was expecting an intruder and wanted to control the path they took. Or both. Harry memorized the layout, withdrew, and flew back to Gryffindor Tower in silence. He didn't go through the door, not yet, he needed more information first. The next morning he cornered Hagrid at his hut. "Hagrid," he said, sitting at the enormous wooden table with a mug of tea that was more sugar than liquid, "what's a three-headed dog doing in the school?" Hagrid dropped a kettle. It hit the floor with a clang that made his boarhound Fang yelp and dive under the table. How do you know about Fluffy?" "His name is Fluffy. He's mine. I lent him to Dumbledore to guard." Hagrid clamped his mouth shut. "I shouldn't have said that. To guard whatever was in Vault 713, Harry said calmly. "The thing you picked up when we went to Gringotts, the thing that's now under a trapdoor on the 3rd floor protected by enchantments from at least 6 different professors." Hagrid stared at him, his beard quivered. "Harry, yes, shouldn't that's between Dumbledore and Nicholas Flamel, and I shouldn't have said that either." "Nicholas Flamel," Harry repeated. Hagrid put his head in his hands. "I'm gonna have to put myself in detention for this." Harry filed the name and moved on. He spent the next 10 minutes asking Hagrid about his parents, genuinely interested, not manipulating, and Hagrid relaxed, talked about James's mischief and Lily's kindness. And by the time Harry left, the big man was wiping his eyes with a tablecloth-sized handkerchief and telling Harry he was welcome for tea anytime. Harry walked back up to the castle with 2 things, a warm feeling in his chest and the name Nicholas Flamel. He found Hermione in the library. Of course he found Hermione in the library. "Nicholas Flamel," he said, sitting down across from her, her head snapped up. "What about him? You know who he is?" "Of course I know who he is. He's on the back of Dumbledore's chocolate frog card, his work on alchemy with his partner Nicholas Flamel. Flamel is the only known maker of the Philosopher's Stone." Harry leaned back, the ring hummed. "The Philosopher's Stone, what does it do?" "It produces the elixir of life which makes the drinker immortal, and it can turn any metal into pure gold. Flamel is over 600 years old. He and his wife Perenelle are the only known users." Hermione's voice had taken on the rapid-fire quality it got when she was connecting dots. "Harry, is that what's in the 3rd floor corridor, the Philosopher's Stone?" "I think so. Dumbledore's protecting it. The question is, from who?" They looked at each other. The library was quiet around them, dust motes floating in the afternoon light. "Someone who wants immortality," Hermione said slowly. "Or someone who wants to give it to someone else." Harry thought about Voldemort, about a man who'd been so afraid of death that he'd killed to escape it, about a body that had disappeared 10 years ago and was never found. "Yeah," he said, "that's what I'm thinking too." Ron joined them after dinner and Harry laid it all out: Fluffy, the trapdoor, the protections, Nicholas Flamel, the stone. Ron listened with growing alarm. "So you know who is trying to steal the Philosopher's Stone from Hogwarts from Dumbledore?" "Maybe," Harry said. "Someone is, and whoever it is, they're already inside the castle." "How do you know that?" "Because the protections aren't designed to stop an outside attack. The ring scanned them, they're sequential challenges, puzzles, tests of different magical skills. They're designed to slow down someone who's already past the front door." Hermione went pale. "A teacher. Or someone close to one." The 3 of them sat in the common room with the fire crackling and the other students talking and laughing around them, and Harry watched the flames and thought about Quirrell. The cold spike. The turban. The stutter that didn't quite match the intelligence behind those nervous eyes. He didn't have proof, not yet, but the ring's instinct was a data point, and Harry had learned in the cupboard, in the schoolyard, in every corner of a childhood built on threat assessment to trust his instincts. "We watch," he said. "We pay attention. And when someone makes a move on that stone, we'll be ready." The weekend brought flying lessons, which were held on the grounds with Madame Hooch, a hawk-eyed woman with short gray hair who looked like she'd been carved from the same wood as her broomstick. The Gryffindors and Slytherins gathered on the lawn, broomsticks lying on the grass in 2 neat rows. "Stick out your right hand over your broom and say up," Hooch commanded. Harry's broom leapt into his hand on the first call. So did Malfoy's. Everyone else struggled. Ron's broom hit him in the face, Hermione's rolled over like a reluctant dog, Neville's didn't move at all. "Now mount your brooms, grip tight, and on my whistle push off gently." Neville, nervous and overcompensating, pushed off too hard. His broom shot skyward like a bottle rocket, with Neville clinging to it and screaming, and within seconds he was 40 feet up and climbing, the broom bucking and spinning in a way that was clearly about to, the broom through him. Neville went cartwheeling through the air, arms flailing, mouth open in a scream that cut off when he started falling. 40 feet straight down onto hard ground. Harry didn't think. The ring didn't need him to think. His hand came up and a construct exploded from his fist, a massive green hand 15 feet across that materialized under Neville and caught him like a baseball in a catcher's mitt. Neville bounced once softly on the green palm and lay there staring at the sky, breathing hard. The class went absolutely silent. Harry lowered the construct gently to the ground, setting Neville on the grass like an egg. The green hand dissolved into sparks. Neville sat up, patted himself, found no broken bones, and burst into tears of relief. Every student on the lawn was staring at Harry, every single one. Madame Hooch's whistle fell out of her mouth. Ron was grinning like a maniac. Hermione had both hands over her mouth. Malfoy's face was chalk white. What Madame Hooch said, recovering first, was that Mr. Potter. Harry held up his ring hand. The green light caught the sunlight and threw emerald reflections across the grass. "I'm a Green Lantern," he said. "It's a long story. Short version, I can make things out of light." Seemed like a better use of time than watching Neville break his neck. Neville, still sitting on the grass with tears on his cheeks, looked up at Harry with an expression of such raw, overwhelming gratitude that it hit harder than any spell. "Thanks, Harry," he whispered. "Anytime, Neville." Madame Hooch opened her mouth, closed it, opened it again, and finally said, "Right, well, 10 points to Gryffindor for whatever that was. Longbottom Hospital Wing, everyone else back on your brooms." But the lesson didn't continue normally, because Malfoy had bent down and picked up something from the grass where Neville had originally stumbled. A small glass ball filled with red smoke. A Remembrall Neville's grandmother had sent it that morning at breakfast. "Look at this," Malfoy said, holding it up with a sneer. "Stupid thing, maybe if Longbottom had given this a squeeze he'd have remembered to." "Give it back, Malfoy," Harry said, not shouting, just flat. Malfoy looked at him and something happened behind his eyes, a calculation, a weighing of options. He'd just seen Harry conjure a 15-foot hand out of thin air. Any sane person would have handed the ball back and shut up. But Draco Malfoy was 11, and his father had told him his whole life that Malfoys bowed to no one and pride was a hell of a drug. He swung a leg over his broom and kicked off. In a second he was airborne, hovering 30 feet up, the Remembrall glinting in his fist. "Come and get it, Potter, or is your little light show only good for catching losers?" Ron swore. Hermione grabbed Harry's arm. "Harry, don't," Madame Hooch said. Madame Hooch had gone with Neville to the hospital wing. The lawn was unsupervised. Harry looked up at Malfoy. He could fly up there in a heartbeat. The ring could reach Malfoy before the boy could blink. He could construct a cage around him, pluck the Remembrall from his hand, and deposit Malfoy back on the ground like a scolded kitten. But that wasn't the point, was it? The point was that Malfoy needed to learn something. Not about Harry's power, about his own limitations. Harry mounted his broom. He'd never flown a broomstick before. He'd flown under the ring's power 100 times, but this was different. This was magic. This was the broom responding to his intent, and the moment his feet left the ground, he understood why wizards loved Quidditch. It was alive. The broom moved with him, not for him. It was partnership, not power. And Harry, who had spent a month learning the most precise control the ring could teach, took to it like a hawk to sky. He shot upward. The wind hit his face and he leaned into it, accelerating, and Malfoy's smirk faltered as Harry came level with him in 3 seconds flat. "Throw it," Harry said. "What?" "The Remembrall, throw it high as you can." Malfoy's jaw tightened. He pulled his arm back and hurled the glass ball skyward with everything he had. It arced up, a red glint against the blue sky, and began to fall. Harry dived, not with the ring. On the broom, pure instinct, pure skill, the wind screaming past him as he plummeted at a 45-degree angle toward the castle wall. The Remembrall was a speck falling fast, and Harry matched its trajectory and accelerated, and the ground rushed up and he reached out. His fingers closed around the glass ball 1 foot from the ground. He pulled up hard, the broom's tail brushing the grass, and landed in a skidding stop that tore a divot in the lawn. The watching students erupted. Gryffindors and Slytherins alike, screaming and cheering because whatever house rivalries existed, that had been something special. Harry held up the Remembrall and tossed it to Ron. "Give that back to Neville." "Harry Potter," the voice was like a thunderclap. Harry turned. Professor McGonagall was striding across the lawn, her face set in an expression that could have cut glass, and for one terrible moment Harry thought he was about to be expelled on his first week. "Come with me," McGonagall said. "Now." He followed her into the castle, through corridors and up staircases, and she didn't speak and Harry didn't ask because there was something in the set of her jaw that wasn't quite anger. It was closer to suppressed excitement. She stopped outside a classroom, knocked, and opened the door. "Excuse me, Professor Flitwick, could I borrow wood for a moment?" A burly fifth-year boy emerged, looking confused. McGonagall looked at him, then at Harry, and then she said the last thing Harry expected. "I've found you a seeker." Oliver Wood's face went through approximately 17 emotions in 2 seconds, ending on a blend of disbelief and what could only be described as religious ecstasy. Are you serious, Professor? I have never been more serious about anything in my life, Wood. I just watched this boy dive 50 feet on a school broom his first time flying and catch a golf ball-sized object 1 foot from the ground. He's a natural, the best I've seen since she caught herself. In years, Wood looked at Harry like Harry was made of gold. Can you come to practice Tuesday evening? We'll get you a proper broom. What position did you say, Seeker? I didn't say anything, Harry pointed out. I don't even know what a seeker does. You catch the snitch, Wood said, as if this were the most obvious thing in the world. Small golden ball, fast as hell, ends the game when you catch it. It's the most important position on the team. Okay, Harry said. Okay, that's it. You don't want to think about it, Harry shrugged. I'm good at catching things. You need someone who catches things. Seems straightforward. Wood turned to McGonagall with tears in his eyes. I love him already. McGonagall's mouth twitched. Yes, well, don't lose the cup this year, Wood. I've had quite enough of Severus Snape's smirk at the staff table. She looked at Harry and her expression softened just a fraction, just for a moment. Your father would have been proud, Potter. He was a chaser. She turned and walked away, and Harry stood in the corridor with Oliver Wood and felt the ring pulse warm on his hand. The news spread through Gryffindor like fiendfire. Harry Potter, first year, hadn't even been at Hogwarts a week, was the youngest Seeker in a century. Fred and George Weasley personally delivered the news to the common room with embellishments, and by dinner time the entire school knew. Malfoy, Harry noticed, did not look pleased. He'll try something, Ron said that evening, sprawled on a common room sofa with a chess set. Malfoy, his ego can't take it. Let him try, Harry said, studying the board. Ron was annihilating him at Wizard's chess. The pieces moved on their own, shouted advice, and occasionally staged small rebellions. Harry's king had called him a disgraceful tactician 2 moves ago. I'm more interested in Quirrell, the stuttering one. He was at the Quidditch notice board today, looking at the schedule. When he saw I was on the team, he went straight to the staff room. Harry moved a pawn. His ring analyzed the board, mate and 7 for Ron, no matter what Harry did. And my ring spikes every time I'm near him. It's not a threat warning exactly, more like a wrongness, something that shouldn't be there. The turban, Hermione said from the armchair where she was reading 3 books simultaneously. Have you noticed how he's always adjusting it? And he reeks of garlic. He told everyone it's to ward off a vampire he met in Romania, but that doesn't explain why the turban smells different. Harry and Ron both looked at her. What? She said. I'm observant. You're scary, Ron said with something that was definitely admiration. The ring can see through it, Harry said slowly. The turban. I haven't tried because I didn't want to tip him off. The scan might be detectable, but if there's something under there, do it in a crowd, Hermione suggested. Somewhere with lots of ambient magical energy. The Great Hall at dinner. He won't be able to distinguish your scan from the background noise. Harry looked at her. She looked back, chin raised, daring him to be surprised. Hermione Granger, he said, you are going to be a terrifying adult. She smiled. He did the scan the next evening. Dinner in the Great Hall, 500 students, thousands of enchanted candles, food appearing on golden plates, ghosts drifting through walls. The ambient magical energy was enormous, a roaring white noise of power. Harry sat at the Gryffindor table, pointed his ring hand toward the staff table under cover of reaching for a bread roll, and let the ring do a deep tissue scan of Professor Quirrell. The results came back in 8 seconds. Harry's hand froze over the bread basket. Anomalous biological signature detected. Subject displays dual consciousness. Secondary consciousness located at posterior cranium, concealed beneath fabric covering. Secondary consciousness displays extreme hostility, elevated dark magical energy, and partial corporeal manifestation consistent with parasitic possession. Classification, threat level, significant. There was a face on the back of Quirrell's head. Harry sat very still. The Great Hall buzzed around him. Ron was arguing with Seamus about West Ham. Hermione was correcting Neville's potions essay. The candles floated. The ceiling showed stars, and at the staff table a dead man was wearing a living man like a suit. Harry lowered his hand. He buttered the bread roll. He chewed, swallowed, and took a drink of pumpkin juice. His heart rate was elevated. The ring noted it, but his face showed nothing. 10 years in the Dursley household had taught him to hide what he felt, and the ring had given him the tools to act on it. After dinner, he pulled Ron and Hermione into an empty classroom. Voldemort is in the castle, he said. Ron flinched. Hermione went very still. He's on the back of Quirrell's head, Harry continued. Under the turban, some kind of parasitic possession. Voldemort doesn't have a body, so he's using Quirrell's. The ring scanned him. It's confirmed. Oh my God, Hermione whispered. Ron looked like he might be sick. You know who is in the castle right now? Yes, on a teacher's head. Yes, I'm going to need a minute. Hermione recovered faster. The stone, he's here for the stone. He wants the elixir of life if Voldemort gets a body back if he becomes immortal. He won't, Harry said. Because we know and he doesn't know we know, and that gives us the advantage. We should tell Dumbledore, Hermione said immediately. This is Harry, this is too big for us. Harry thought about Dumbledore, about the old man who'd placed him with the Dursleys for 10 years and never checked in, who'd put a deadly obstacle course in a school and announced it to children, who'd hired a professor with Lord Voldemort literally attached to his skull. Dumbledore already knows, Harry said. They both stared at him. Think about it. Dumbledore is supposed to be the greatest wizard alive. He hired Quirrell personally. You think he didn't notice the most dangerous dark wizard in history riding shotgun on his new defense professor? Harry shook his head. He knows. Playing a game. He wants Voldemort to make a move on the stone, probably so he can catch him in the act or trigger some kind of trap. That's insane, Ron said. There are children here. Yeah, Harry said, there are. The room was quiet for a moment. Somewhere in the castle a clock chimed 10. So what do we do? Hermione asked. Harry looked at his ring. The green light reflected in his glasses, steady and sure. We do what Dumbledore won't. We handle it ourselves if we have to. I'm not going to wait for a chess game to play out while Voldemort sits 3 corridors away from where we sleep. He looked at both of them, Ron, pale but set-jawed, Hermione, scared but fierce. But I won't ask you to be part of it. This is my fight. Shut up, Ron said. Harry blinked. What? I said shut up, you're my friend. You just told me the most evil wizard who ever lived is camping out on a bloke's head in this castle, and you think I'm going to go back to the dormitory and have a nice kip? Shut up, Harry. Hermione stood up straighter. Ron's right, for once. Ron made an offended noise. We're in this together, all 3 of us, that's not negotiable. Harry looked at them. 2 kids, an 11-year-old bookworm and an 11-year-old chess player, standing in an empty classroom telling him they'd face Voldemort at his side. The ring pulsed on his finger, warm and bright, and Harry understood something the Guardians of Oa had known for 3 billion years. That willpower wasn't a solo act. It was a fire that burned brighter when you stood next to people worth burning for. All right, he said. Together. They shook on it. Green light spilled between their clasped hands, and for a moment, just a moment, the empty classroom blazed like a lantern. That night, Harry went to the astronomy tower alone. He needed to think, and he thought best in the sky. He floated 100 feet above the highest turret, the ring keeping him warm against the October wind, and looked up at the stars. The castle sprawled below, ancient and glowing. The lake was a black mirror, the forest was a dark mystery, and somewhere in the vast cold space above, the ring detected something. A faint signal very far away, moving toward this sector. The ring flagged it automatically. Unidentified object. Trajectory Sol system. Estimated arrival 47 days. Profile matches Manhunter class autonomous unit. Harry frowned. Manhunter? The ring fed him the data. Manhunters, the Guardians' first attempt at a universal police force before the Green Lantern Corps. Robots, powerful, relentless, and ultimately flawed, they'd interpreted their mission too literally, choosing to eliminate crime by eliminating populations. The Guardians had decommissioned them, but some had survived. Rogue units drifting through space, still running their original programming. No man escapes the Manhunters, and one was heading for Earth. Drawn, almost certainly, by the ring's activation signal, a new lantern in Sector 2814, broadcasting on a frequency the Manhunters were built to track. 47 days. Harry floated in the dark and did the math. Voldemort inside the castle, planning to steal the Philosopher's Stone and return to power. A Manhunter unit crossing the solar system heading for Hogwarts. 2 threats, 2 timelines converging on the same point. He could handle one easily, both at once would be harder. He looked down at the ring, it glowed steadily, 94% power, fully charged, ready. All right, Harry said to the stars. Come on then, both of you. The wind blew, the castle creaked. And far below, in a room full of sleeping Gryffindors, 2 of Harry's friends dreamed restless dreams, not knowing yet what was coming but already braced for it, because that was the thing about standing next to a green lantern. The light was contagious. Harry descended slowly, touching down on the astronomy tower balcony. He stood for a moment looking out across the moonlit grounds, and the ring caught something, a flicker of movement near the edge of the forbidden forest. A figure in a dark cloak moving furtively between the trees. The ring zoomed in, Quirrell, or rather Voldemort driving Quirrell's body through the dark wood toward something. The ring tracked him until the forest's own magical interference swallowed the signal. Drinking unicorn blood, the ring speculated, cross-referencing its database. Sustaining the parasitic connection. Keeping Voldemort alive in his borrowed body long enough to make his play for the stone. Harry watched the forest until the figure was gone, then went inside, descended through the sleeping castle, gave the fat lady the password and climbed into bed. Ron was snoring. Neville was murmuring in his sleep. Outside the window the stars turned slowly, and somewhere among them something was coming. Harry closed his eyes. The ring dimmed. 47 days he slept. And this time he dreamed not of green light and screaming, but of a dark corridor, a locked door, and something vast and terrible waiting on the other side. In the dream, he reached for the door handle, and the ring blazed on his hand, and the oath came like a war cry. In brightest day, in blackest night, he woke with the words on his lips and the first light of dawn in the window and the certain, bone-deep knowledge that he was exactly where he was supposed to be. The fight was coming. Let it come, he was ready. Chapter 2 end. Chapter 3, but where my power. October came to Hogwarts like a slow exhale, the grounds turning gold and copper, the lake going steel-gray, the wind carrying the smell of dead leaves and wood smoke through the corridors. Harry barely noticed. He was too busy. Mornings were classes, afternoons were research, evenings were Quidditch practice, nights were ring training. And threaded through all of it, constant and quiet, was the watch. 3 pairs of eyes tracking Quirrell's movements through the castle, logging patterns, building a picture. Hermione kept the records. She'd started a notebook, enchanted with a privacy charm she'd learned from a 5th-year textbook that tracked Quirrell's schedule, his movements between classes, his meals, his absences. She was methodical, thorough, and slightly terrifying about it. "He leaves the castle every Thursday night," she said, spreading the notebook across their usual table in the library. "Between 11 and 2 in the morning. He goes into the Forbidden Forest and comes back looking worse, paler, shakier. And on Fridays he smells different, not garlic, something metallic. Unicorn blood," Harry said. He told them what the ring had detected. "Voldemort needs it to sustain the possession. Unicorn blood keeps you alive even if you're at death's door, but it curses you a half-life. It's a stopgap." Ron, who was supposed to be writing a charms essay, put down his quill. "So he's killing unicorns in the forest every week." "The centaurs know," Harry said. "The ring picks up movement in the forest when Quirrell goes in, large quadrupeds following at a distance. They're watching him but not intervening." "Why not?" "Centaurs read the stars. They think interference with fate is beneath them." Harry's jaw tight. "I disagree." "Harry," Hermione said carefully, "if you confront Quirrell now, I know he'll know we're onto him. Voldemort goes to ground, finds another host, another plan, we lose our advantage." Harry leaned back in his chair. "I'm not going to confront him yet, but those unicorns." He trailed off. The ring pulsed. Hermione and Ron exchanged a look. "You're going into the forest," Ron said. It wasn't a question. "Thursday night, alone. The ring makes me the most dangerous thing in that forest by a wide margin." "Ron, that's not what I asked." Harry looked at him. Ron's ears were red, which happened when he was embarrassed or determined, and right now it was definitely the second one. "You can't fly," Harry said. "I can walk through the Forbidden Forest at midnight with something killing unicorns in it." "I didn't stutter." Hermione closed her notebook. "I'm coming too." "Absolutely not. Harry James Potter, if you finish that sentence I will hex you into next week, and I don't care that you have a magic space ring." She squared her shoulders. "We said together we meant it." Harry looked at the two of them, Ron with his jaw set and his hand unconsciously clenched around his wand, Hermione with her chin raised and her eyes blazing, and something in his chest expanded painfully. "Fine," he said. "Thursday night we go in, we find the unicorns, we protect them, and if we run into Quirrell." He let the ring glow just for a second. "Well, that's his problem." Thursday came, Halloween as it happened. The Great Hall was decorated for the feast, live bats, jack-o'-lanterns the size of garden sheds, a troupe of dancing skeletons that performed between courses. The food was spectacular. Harry ate mechanically, his mind on the forest, watching Quirrell at the staff table. The professor was picking at his plate, the turban slightly askew, his fingers twitching. 31 days, the ring murmured in Harry's mind. The Manhunter update, it ran every 24 hours now, a countdown he couldn't ignore. 31 days until it reached Earth. Harry pushed the thought aside, one crisis at a time. The feast was halfway through when the doors of the Great Hall burst open and Professor Quirrell sprinted in, turban askew, face white with terror. He made it to the staff table, clutched the edge, and gasped, "Troll in the dungeons, thought you ought to know." He collapsed in a dead faint, or what looked like a dead faint. The ring scanned him in the chaos that followed and registered a heartbeat that was slightly too steady for someone who'd supposedly just passed out from shock. Fake. The faint was fake. The hall erupted, students screaming, jumping up, knocking over goblets. Dumbledore fired a cannon blast from his wand and ordered the prefects to lead houses back to their dormitories. The teachers mobilized toward the dungeons. Harry didn't move. He watched Quirrell on the floor, watched the man's eyelids flicker, watched him wait until the staff table emptied, and then in the crush of students heading for the doors, watched him get up and slip away in the opposite direction, toward the third floor. He's going for the stone, Harry said. Ron grabbed his arm. Harry, there's a troll. The troll is a distraction. He let it in to clear the castle. Hermione went pale. But the students, the Slytherin's dormitory is in the dungeons. If the troll, go with the prefects, Harry said. Both of you, get everyone to the common rooms. What are you going to do? Harry was already moving against the tide of students heading for the entrance hall. Handle the troll, then handle Quirrell. Harry, 2 minutes, I'll catch up. He broke away from the crowd and flew, not metaphorically, actually flew. The ring blazed and he shot down the corridor at 40 miles an hour, 6 inches off the ground, following the troll's trail through the castle. He didn't need the ring to track it, the smell alone was enough. Like a landfill had been left in the sun for a week. Massive footprints in the stone, a trail of crushed mortar where it had bounced off walls. He found it on the first floor, not in the dungeons. It had wandered 12 feet tall, gray-green skin like old concrete, a tiny head on massive shoulders dragging a wooden club the size of a tree trunk. It was standing in the corridor outside the girls' bathroom, sniffing the air, and as Harry rounded the corner it turned and looked at him with small, dull eyes. Then it raised the club. Harry raised his hand. A construct hit the troll in the chest, not a fist, not a beam, a wall. A flat, solid plane of green energy the size of a billboard that slammed into 12 feet of mountain troll at roughly the speed of a city bus. The troll left the ground. It flew backward through the corridor, through a stone wall and into an empty classroom where it hit the far wall hard enough to crack the masonry. Harry floated into the classroom through the troll-shaped hole. The troll was trying to get up. It was tough, thick skull, dense bones, magical resistance that the ring noted with clinical interest. It got one hand under itself, then the other, and started to push up. Harry built a cage. 4 walls and a ceiling, tight, reinforced, glowing green. The troll stood up inside it and smashed the club against the bars. The bars held. The troll smashed again, and again. The club splintered. The cage didn't budge. Stay, Harry said like he was talking to a dog. The troll bellowed and threw itself against the walls. Harry turned to go and stopped. Someone was crying, in the bathroom. A thin hiccuping sound half muffled by a locked stall door. He crossed the corridor and pushed open the bathroom door. Hello, a gasp. The crying stopped. The troll's handled, Harry said. You're safe, you can come out. A stall door creaked open, and Hermione Granger peered out with red, puffy eyes and a blotchy face. She'd been crying for a while, long before the troll. She looked at Harry, at the green light on his hand, at the troll-shaped hole in the opposite wall, and her lower lip trembled. You weren't at the feast, Harry said. He hadn't noticed. He'd been watching Quirrell. Guilt hit him like a punch. What happened? Nothing, it's stupid. Hermione, she sniffed hard. Ron said after charms he said I was a nightmare and that it was no wonder I didn't have any friends. Harry stood very still. I know it shouldn't, I know it's childish to, her voice cracked, but I've never had friends. Not before Hogwarts, not at my old school, not. Everyone always thinks I'm too much, too loud, too, and I thought here it would be different, but it's the same. And I'm hiding in a bathroom on Halloween crying about a boy and a troll nearly. Ron's an idiot, Harry said. She looked up. He's a good person and he's my friend, but right now he's an idiot. You're not a nightmare, Hermione. You're the smartest person I've ever met. You tracked a professor's schedule for 3 weeks and built a surveillance database that would impress actual intelligence agencies. You taught yourself a 5th-year privacy charm because you needed it for our investigation. And you offered to walk into the Forbidden Forest at midnight because your friends needed you. He held out his hand. Green light pooled in his palm, soft as candlelight. You have friends, he said. You have us, and anyone who says otherwise answers to me. Hermione stared at his hand. Then she took it and the ring pulsed warmly and she squeezed hard enough that Harry felt it through the construct gauntlet. Thank you, she whispered. Come on, let's go yell at Ron. They found Ron in the corridor outside the bathroom, white-faced and out of breath. He'd come looking for them, had heard about the troll, realized Hermione wasn't with the Gryffindors, and run here despite every prefect in the castle trying to herd him to safety. He saw Hermione's tear-stained face and something crumbled in his expression. Hermione, I'm sorry, I'm really sorry. What I said was mean, Hermione said. Yeah, it was mean. I was frustrated about the homework and I took it out on you and that's no excuse. No, it's not. I'll make it up to you, I swear. Hermione looked at him for a long moment. Ron stood there with his ears flaming red and his wand in his hand. He'd come to fight a troll for her, armed with 2 months of magical education and sheer stupid courage, and Hermione's expression softened. You came to find me, she said. Course I did. Something shifted between the 3 of them. Not dramatic, not cinematic. Just a small, permanent rearrangement, 3 people clicking into place. Harry felt it and the ring felt it, and he thought again about what the Guardians knew. That willpower burned brightest in company. Professors McGonagall and Snape arrived 30 seconds later, Snape limping slightly and looking murderous. McGonagall took one look at the troll in its green cage, still bellowing, still thrashing, and the destroyed wall, and Harry standing there with his ring glowing and 2 friends at his sides. "Explain," she said. Troll wandered up from the dungeons. "Hermione was in the bathroom and didn't know. I contained it." Harry gestured at the cage. "It's not going anywhere. Might want to call Hagrid, though. I'm not sure what you do with a troll once you've caught one." McGonagall stared at the cage, stared at Harry, her mouth worked silently. 5 points to Gryffindor," she said finally. "Each." She looked at Ron and Hermione. "For sheer dumb luck." Snape, meanwhile, was staring at Harry with an expression that had nothing to do with trolls. He was leaning against the wall, keeping weight off his right leg, and when his robes shifted, Harry caught a glimpse of torn fabric and blood. The ring scanned automatically. Laceration, right leg, 3 parallel wounds consistent with animal claws or teeth. Canine origin, size indicates large breed, very large. Fluffy, Snape had been to the 3rd-floor corridor tonight. While the troll distracted the school, Snape had gone to check on the stone and Fluffy had objected. But wait, if Snape went to check on the stone, that meant Snape was protecting it, which meant Snape was on Dumbledore's side, which meant the cold, bitter potions master with a dead woman's eyes haunting him was standing guard against the thing that had killed her. Harry filed it. More data. More pieces of a picture that was getting clearer every day. They went back to Gryffindor Tower. The feast had been finished in the common rooms, plates of food and flagons of pumpkin juice on every surface. The atmosphere was buzzing, half scared and half thrilled, the way kids got when something dangerous happened to someone else. Harry sat by the fire with Ron and Hermione and said nothing about Quirrell's fake faint, Snape's leg, or the fact that Voldemort had just made his first probing move against the stone's defenses. He'd tell them tomorrow. Tonight, Hermione needed normalcy and Ron needed to stop looking guilty, and Harry needed to just be for 5 minutes. Hermione fell asleep in the armchair. Ron draped his cloak over her, caught Harry's eye, and nodded, a small, firm gesture that said, "I won't let her down again." Harry nodded back. Some promises didn't need words. November hit Hogwarts with rain and wind and the first Quidditch match of the season, Gryffindor versus Slytherin. Harry had been training with Wood for 6 weeks. The rest of the team, Fred and George as beaters, 3 chasers named Angelina, Alicia, and Katie, had accepted him with a mixture of skepticism and hope that tilted toward belief after the first practice when Harry caught the practice snitch in 4 minutes flat. 4 minutes, Wood had whispered, clutching his clipboard. "The school record is 5 in a practice," the ring helped. Harry wouldn't pretend it didn't. The enhanced reflexes, the spatial awareness, the ability to track a fast-moving golden object against a complex background. But the broomwork was all him, pure instinct, pure joy. Flying on a broom was the one thing in Harry's life that didn't feel like work. It felt like breathing. The morning of the match, Harry woke early and found a long, thin package at the foot of his bed. He unwrapped it and stared. A Nimbus 2000. The best racing broom on the market. A note was attached. "Do not open at the table, Professor M. McGonagall." Ron nearly had a heart attack. "A Nimbus 2000, do you know how much those cost? My brothers are going to die." Harry ran his hand along the polished handle and let the ring scan it. Perfectly balanced, responsive enchantments, acceleration charms layered into the wood grain. Beautiful engineering. Different from the ring's constructs, organic, magical, alive in a way technology wasn't. He loved it immediately. The match was at 11. By 10:30 the entire school had packed the Quidditch stands, 4 towers wrapped in house colors, hundreds of students screaming, a gray November sky threatening rain. Hagrid sat in the top row with binoculars. The Slytherin team in green and silver looked like they'd been assembled for intimidation rather than sport, big, fast, mean. Their seeker, a boy named Terrence Higgs, was 2 years older than Harry and built like a greyhound. Harry stood in the tunnel beneath the pitch, broom in hand, and breathed. "Nervous?" Wood asked. Number Wood blinked. "Right, course not, you've got a magic space ring." "I'm not using the ring." Harry looked at him. "This is Quidditch, I want to win it on the broom." Wood's eyes went wide, then soft, then slightly manic. "Potter, I think I might actually love you. You said that before, I'm saying it again." They walked out onto the pitch to a wall of sound. Lee Jordan, a friend of the Weasley twins, was commentating, and here come the Gryffindors. Potter, Johnson, Spinnet, Bell, Weasley, and Wood. And the crowd roared and Harry mounted his broom and kicked off. The game was fast, physical, and violent. Quidditch at school level was nothing like Harry had imagined. It was closer to aerial rugby, with bludgers screaming past his head and the Slytherin beaters deliberately targeting the Gryffindor chasers. Fred and George held them off with ferocious precision, cracking Bludger's back like tennis players with baseball bats, but the Slytherins were good, aggressive, coordinated, and utterly willing to cheat when the referee wasn't looking. Harry soared above it all, scanning for the snitch. The air was cold, the wind fierce, and the ring hummed on his finger, feeding him data he was deliberately ignoring: wind speed, player trajectories, probability matrices. He didn't want data, he wanted the flash of gold. Gryffindor scored first, then Slytherin, then Gryffindor twice more. The crowd was a single roaring organism. Harry circled the pitch, climbed, dived, circled again, his broom jerked. Not wind, not turbulence. A deliberate, violent lurch to the right that nearly threw him off. Harry gripped hard, steadied, and the broom bucked again, harder. His feet slipped off the footrests. The broom began to roll, pitching him sideways, and Harry grabbed the handle with both hands as the ring flared in warning. External magical interference detected. Jinx, sustained, directed, originating from the ring, traced the magical signature back across the pitch, through the screaming crowd to the staff stand. To a pair of dark eyes fixed on Harry with unblinking intensity, lips moving in a silent incantation. Snape. Number Harry's mind caught up with the ring's data in a flash. Snape's lips were moving, yes, but the magical signature of the Jinx didn't match Snape's energy profile. It matched the second signature in the staff box, the one behind the turban. Quirrell was jinxing the broom. Snape was performing the countercurse. The broom bucked again, more violently. Harry was upside down now, hanging by one hand, the ground 200 feet below. The crowd screamed, Hermione screamed. Harry could have ended it in a heartbeat. The ring could have stabilized the broom, shielded him, carried him safely to the ground. But that would mean stopping the match. That would mean Quirrell won this round. Instead, Harry did something that the ring would later classify as tactically inadvisable but psychologically effective. He let go, he fell. 200 feet of open air between him and the ground, the wind roaring, the crowd screaming, and Harry Potter fell like a stone. And then 30 feet from the pitch, his ring hand came up and he stopped. Green light blazed. He hovered motionless in the middle of the Quidditch pitch and the entire stadium went silent. Harry looked up at the staff box. He couldn't see Quirrell's face clearly at this distance, but the ring could. The man had gone sheet white. The Jinx had broken the moment Harry released the broom. Quirrell couldn't jinx what Harry wasn't touching. Harry raised his free hand. His broom, still spinning wildly above, steadied, and a green construct, a long arm, 60 feet of hard light, reached up and snatched it out of the air. The construct brought the broom down to Harry, who grabbed it, mounted it, and kicked off again in one fluid motion. The crowd erupted. Lee Jordan was screaming into the megaphone. Did everyone just see that? Potter just, he fell, he flew, what is happening? But Harry wasn't listening. He was climbing fast, eyes locked on a glint of gold near the base of the Slytherin goalposts. The snitch. Higgs saw it too. The Slytherin seeker wheeled and dived from the opposite end of the pitch, and they raced toward it from converging angles, two boys on broomsticks screaming through the November air. Harry was faster, the Nimbus was faster, and Harry had spent a month flying at Mach 3 over the Atlantic, which put Quidditch speeds into a certain perspective. He stretched out his hand, not the ring hand, the left, the one that held the holly wand and caught the remembrall, and his fingers closed around the snitch. The whistle blew, the crowd exploded. Gryffindor won 170-60. Harry landed on the pitch with the snitch in his fist, and his team descended on him like a hurricane. Wood was crying openly. Fred and George were chanting something profane. Angelina kissed him on the forehead and immediately pretended she hadn't. In the stands, Ron was hugging a complete stranger. Hermione was bouncing on her seat. Hagrid was blowing his nose on something that might have been a small tent. And in the staff box, Professor Quirrell adjusted his turban with shaking hands and slipped away while everyone watched the celebration below. After the match, Harry found a quiet spot behind the changing rooms and let the adrenaline drain. The ring replayed the Jinx analysis. Quirrell's magical signature, masked but identifiable. Snape's countercurse holding the line. Two teachers fighting an invisible war in the stands while 300 students watched a game. Ron and Hermione found him there, flushed and breathless from the crowd. That was incredible, Ron said. The fall that you just stopped in midair. Quirrell jinxed the broom, Harry said. The excitement drained from Ron's face. Hermione's jaw set. He tried to kill you, she said. In front of the whole school. He tried to make it look like an accident, and Snape was running interference. He was doing the counter-jinx. The ring confirmed it. Harry looked at the sky, gray clouds, thin rain starting. Voldemort is getting impatient. The troll was a test. The broom was an escalation. He's going to move on the stone soon. How soon? Ron asked. I don't know, but he's getting desperate. The unicorn blood is keeping him alive, but barely. He needs the stone. The elixir of life is the only thing that can give him a real body again. Hermione pulled out her notebook, flipped to a fresh page, and started writing. We need a plan, not just surveillance, an actual plan for when he makes his move. I have a plan, Harry said. What is it? When he goes through the trapdoor, I go after him. That's not a plan, Harry, that's a sentence. He smiled despite himself. Fine, help me make it a plan. They spent the rest of the afternoon in the library mapping out everything they knew about the third-floor corridor's defenses. The ring's initial scan had given Harry the broad strokes, multiple chambers, each with a unique magical signature, but they needed details. Fluffy's the first obstacle, Harry said. Hagrid's three-headed dog. He told me Fluffy falls asleep when you play music. Ron raised an eyebrow. Hagrid told you that? Hagrid tells you everything if you ask nicely and wait long enough. He can't help it, he trusts people. Hermione consulted her notes. After Fluffy, the trapdoor leads down. The ring detected 6 separate chambers. 6 magical signatures, each different, I'd guess one per professor involved. Sprout, Flitwick, McGonagall, Snape, Quirrell, and Dumbledore. Each one would design a challenge based on their specialty, Hermione said, thinking out loud. Sprout herbology, something with plants. Flitwick charms, probably an enchanted obstacle. McGonagall transfiguration, Snape potions. Quirrell defense against the dark arts. And Dumbledore, Harry said, whatever's last. You could just fly down there right now and get the stone yourself, Ron said. Couldn't you put it somewhere safe? I could, Harry had thought about it. But Dumbledore designed these protections. If I break through them, he'll know and he'll want to know why, and that conversation leads to places I'm not ready to go yet. Right now our advantage is that Quirrell doesn't know we're watching him and Dumbledore doesn't know the ring can see through his defenses. I'd like to keep both of those. So we wait, Hermione said. We prepare, Harry corrected. Different thing, they prepared. Over the next 2 weeks, Harry pushed his training harder than ever. Not just ring constructs, magic too. He was ahead of the first-year curriculum by months, and he'd started borrowing second- and third-year textbooks from the library. Hermione joined him because Hermione couldn't resist a challenge, and together they worked through advanced charms, basic defensive spells, and the theory behind wards and protective enchantments. Ron contributed differently. He couldn't match Harry's power or Hermione's academics, but he had something neither of them did: tactical instinct. Ron Weasley, who struggled with basic spellwork and forgot his homework 3 days out of 5, was a genius at wizard's chess. Not just good, prodigious. He could see patterns, anticipate moves, think 6 steps ahead. And when they sat around the common room fire and talked strategy, Ron was the one who saw the angles. Quirrell's weakness isn't power, Ron said one evening, moving his queen across the board. It's Voldemort, think about it, Voldemort's used to being the strongest wizard in the room. He's arrogant. He won't expect an 11-year-old to fight back even with your ring. He'll underestimate you. And, Harry said, watching his king retreat. And that's how you beat him, not with power, with surprise. He'll be expecting a scared kid, give him a green lantern instead. Ron's queen took Harry's last bishop. Checkmate in 3, by the way. Harry looked at the board. Ron was right. You know the ring has a tactical analysis program. It's not as good as you. Ron's ears went red, but he grinned. Tell the space ring I said thanks. The ring was tracking the Manhunter daily now, 23 days out and closing. It had passed the orbit of Neptune, a single dense point of energy moving at relativistic speeds, and the ring's analysis was getting more detailed as the distance shrank. Manhunter Unit Mark IV, heavily modified, power source, residual own energy corrupted. Weapons systems, plasma discharge, energy dampening field, kinetic acceleration. Combat rating, significant threat to Lone Lantern operatives. Harry read the data at night, sitting on the astronomy tower, and planned. The Manhunter would arrive in late November or early December. It would come straight for the ring's signal, straight for Hogwarts, and when it arrived, it wouldn't knock politely. He needed to intercept it far from the school, in space ideally, or at least in the atmosphere over unpopulated terrain. The Scottish Highlands offered options, hundreds of square miles of empty moorland where a fight wouldn't endanger civilians. But that meant being away from the castle, away from the stone, away from Quirrell and Voldemort, and Harry didn't trust that the timing was coincidental. Life in his experience didn't space out its crises conveniently. He started preparing for both. The ring built battle simulations based on the Manhunter's specs, and Harry ran them every night, fighting a hard-light replica of the incoming robot in the sky above Scotland, developing tactics, testing constructs. The Manhunter was tough, own technology built to fight lanterns, designed to counter ring-based attacks. Standard constructs would be met with energy dampeners. Raw power would be absorbed and redirected. He needed to be creative. Meanwhile, during the day, he kept watching Quirrell. The professor was getting worse, thinner, shakier, the stutter more pronounced. Whatever Voldemort was doing to his body, it was burning through him. The unicorn blood was buying time, but the clock was running. Something had to give. Harry could feel it. A pressure building like the air before a thunderstorm. It broke on a Tuesday. Harry was in defense against the dark arts, Quirrell's class, which was both terrible. Quirrell's teaching was a stuttering mess. And fascinating, the ring scanned every spell Quirrell demonstrated and detected a second layer of magic underneath. The real power that the stutter was designed to disguise. They were studying basic defensive hexes, and Quirrell was demonstrating a shield charm on a training dummy. And now the important thing is intent, Quirrell said, wand hand trembling. You must truly believe the shield will hold. He flicked his wand. The shield materialized, thin, wavering, pathetic, a performance. Harry's ring detected the actual spell Quirrell had cast, not a basic shield charm but a layered defensive matrix that would have stopped a charging bull. The man was hiding his power in plain sight. Then Quirrell turned and his gaze swept the classroom, and for one instant, one fractional instant, his eyes met Harry's and the stutter dropped and the trembling stopped and something else looked out from behind those watery eyes. Something cold and vast and impossibly old. The ring spiked, hard, not just the cold warning, a full threat alert, the first Harry had ever felt. Hostile entity has achieved direct awareness of ring bearer. Recommend defensive posture. Harry held the gaze, he didn't flinch, he didn't look away. He let the ring glow on his finger openly, unmistakably, and he stared straight into those cold eyes and thought very clearly, very deliberately, I see you. The moment passed, Quirrell blinked, the stutter returned, the trembling came back. He turned to the board and began writing with chalky, shaking hands. But something had changed. The air in the classroom felt different, charged, electric. Hermione, sitting next to Harry, had gone rigid. She'd felt it too, even without the ring. Harry, she breathed. I know, he whispered. It's okay. It wasn't okay, Voldemort knew. Not everything, not about the ring's scanning capabilities, not about their surveillance, but he knew that Harry wasn't afraid of him. And for a being that fed on fear, that ran on it, that had built an empire on it, encountering someone who simply didn't flinch was like running into a wall at full speed. Harry waited for the fallout. It came that night. He was in the common room finishing a transfiguration essay when the ring chimed softly. Anomalous magical activity detected. Location, Gryffindor Boys' Dormitory, first year. Harry was up the stairs in 3 seconds. The dormitory was dim, the other boys already asleep, and everything looked normal, but the ring was painting the room in warning colors, green light pulsing in rapid patterns Harry had learned to read. There, Ron's bed, something on the pillow next to Ron's sleeping head. Small, dark, and pulsing with magic so malevolent the ring's threat classification jumped 2 levels. A curse. Not a big one, subtle, insidious. A nightmare hex layered with compulsion charms, designed to burrow into the target's dreams, feed them fear, turn sleep into torture. It was a message, not to Ron. Ron was the delivery system. The message was for Harry. I can reach the people you care about. Harry's hand closed into a fist. The ring blazed. He could have been angry. He was angry, a hot, tight fury that the ring translated into a power spike and a shimmer of green fire around his shoulders. But anger was a tool, not a master, and Harry had 10 years of practice keeping his emotions on a leash. He extended his hand. A precise construct, tweezers, molecular thin, more delicate than any surgeon's instrument, lifted the curse object from Ron's pillow. It was a scrap of parchment, almost invisible, covered in tiny runes that writhed when the light hit them. The ring analyzed it. Curse origin, dark arts, advanced. Caster signature matches secondary consciousness in subject Quirrell. Voldemort had placed this, personally, which meant Quirrell or the thing riding Quirrell had been inside Gryffindor Tower, inside the dormitory, while Harry was downstairs. Harry contained the curse in a green sphere, neutralized it with a focused energy pulse and vaporized the remains. The malevolent magic dissipated like smoke. Ron snored on, undisturbed, unaware how close he'd come to a night of horrors. Harry stood in the dark dormitory and made a decision. He went to Dumbledore, not because he needed help, not because he was scared. Because Voldemort had just escalated from targeting Harry to targeting Harry's friends, and that changed the calculus. Harry could protect himself, he could not be everywhere at once. The headmaster's office was behind a gargoyle on the 2nd floor. Harry knew this because the ring had mapped the castle. He did not know the password, he didn't need one. The ring phased him through the wall. Dumbledore's office was circular, cluttered, and full of whirring silver instruments whose purpose the ring couldn't immediately determine. Portraits of previous headmasters lined the walls, most asleep, a few peeping curiously. A phoenix, an actual phoenix, the ring nearly overloaded cataloging it, sat on a golden perch by the desk, regarding Harry with ancient, intelligent eyes. Dumbledore was behind the desk, awake despite the hour, not surprised. "Harry," he said pleasantly. "I wondered when you'd visit. Lemon drop." Harry sat in the chair across the desk. The ring was on full alert, scanning everything. Dumbledore's magical signature, vast, deep, and somehow warmer than any Harry had encountered. The instruments on the desk, the phoenix, the sorting hat on its shelf, and something in a glass case by the window that pulsed with ancient, familiar power. "You know about Quirrell," Harry said, not a question. Dumbledore's expression didn't change, but something shifted behind his eyes, a recalibration. He'd expected a scared child, he was getting something else. "I have my suspicions," Dumbledore said carefully. "Your suspicions, right." Harry leaned forward. "There's a piece of Voldemort living on the back of Quirrell's head. He's been killing unicorns in the forest to sustain the connection. He jinxed my broom at the Quidditch match. And tonight he placed a nightmare curse on my friend's pillow inside Gryffindor Tower." The pleasant mask flickered. Dumbledore's eyes went sharp, truly sharp, the grandfatherly twinkle replaced by something that reminded Harry forcibly that this man had defeated the most dangerous dark wizard before Voldemort. "You're certain of all this?" Harry held up the ring. "This ring can scan through walls, analyze magical signatures, and detect lies, I'm certain." Dumbledore looked at the ring for a long time. Harry felt the scan, not from the ring, from Dumbledore. A gentle, probing magical touch, like a hand testing the temperature of water. The ring flagged it and Harry let it happen. Transparency was the point. "Remarkable," Dumbledore murmured. "I have encountered many powerful artifacts in my long life, Harry. I have never encountered anything quite like that. It's not an artifact, it's a weapon, given to me by a corps of intergalactic peacekeepers because they judged me to have sufficient willpower to wield it." Harry held the old man's gaze. "I'm not telling you this to impress you, Professor. I'm telling you because Voldemort just threatened my friends and I need to know if you're going to do something about it or if I need to handle it myself." The office was very quiet. The phoenix made a soft, musical sound. The silver instruments whirred. Dumbledore sat back in his chair and steepled his fingers. The twinkle was gone. In its place was something raw and honest, the face beneath the performance. "You are very like your mother," he said softly. "She had the same way of cutting through nonsense." "Professor, I will be direct with you, Harry, because you have earned it." Dumbledore took a slow breath. "Yes, I know about Quirrell. I have known since the start of term. And yes, there is a plan I have spent months constructing, designed to draw Voldemort into a trap where he can be neutralized without endangering the school." "The stone," Harry said. Dumbledore nodded. "Bait. The protections are designed to slow Voldemort, not stop him. When he reaches the final chamber, he will find an obstacle he cannot overcome, the Mirror of Erised, which will only yield the stone to someone who wants it but does not intend to use it. Voldemort, who wants it desperately and intends to use it immediately, will be unable to retrieve it. He will be trapped and I will be there." "And if you're not there," Harry said, "what if he moves when you're away from the castle? What if he finds a way past the mirror? What if he decides the stone isn't worth it and goes for something else like me?" Dumbledore was quiet. "You put a trap in a school," Harry said. "You hired the man Voldemort was possessing. You knew he was killing unicorns and you let it continue. You knew he was a threat to every student in this castle and you gambled that your plan would work before anyone got hurt. It is the best plan available. It's a plan that treats children as acceptable collateral." The words landed hard. Dumbledore's face tightened. "I do not. Tonight Voldemort put a curse on my best friend's pillow. Inside the dormitory, the wards didn't stop him. The protections didn't stop him." "Your plan didn't stop him. I did, because I was there, because the ring detected the threat, because I acted." Harry stood. The ring glowed, steady and bright, throwing his shadow long across the office floor. "I respect you, Professor. I believe you care about the students in this school, but I'm not going to sit in a common room and trust that your chess game will keep my friends safe. I have the power to protect them and I will use it. The question is whether we work together or separately." Dumbledore looked at him. The phoenix sang a single, clear note. "Together," Dumbledore said quietly. "If you'll allow it, I will, but I need 3 things." "Name them." 1. Ward Gryffindor Tower against Quirrell specifically. Use his magical signature. I'll give it to you from the ring's database. I want him locked out. Dumbledore nodded slowly. Done. 2. If you leave the castle for any reason you tell me, I don't need to know where or why, just that you're gone so I can be on alert. Another nod. Agreed. 3. Stop keeping things from me about my parents, about Voldemort, about why he came after my family. I know there's more to the story. I know the scar is more than a scar, and I know you know. Harry's voice was steady, but the ring reflected the emotion underneath, a green pulse like a heartbeat. I've earned the truth, Professor. Dumbledore closed his eyes. When he opened them, they were bright, not with the twinkle but with something that looked very much like tears held back by a century of practice. You have, he said, but the truth is heavy, Harry, heavier than you know, and some of it I do not yet fully understand myself. Then tell me what you do understand. In time, not tonight. Tonight we have a more immediate concern. He rose from his desk. I will ward the tower within the hour, and Harry was already at the door. He turned. The ring chose well, Dumbledore said. Harry looked at the old man, brilliant, flawed, burdened with 100 years of terrible decisions made for what he believed were the right reasons, and felt something that wasn't quite forgiveness but was close enough to start. Good night, Professor. He walked out. The gargoyle sealed behind him. Harry went back to Gryffindor Tower. He checked Ron sleeping peacefully, no curse, no danger. He checked Hermione's dormitory door, sealed, warded, safe. He checked the common room, the entrance, every window. Then he went to the roof. He sat on the highest point of Gryffindor Tower, legs dangling over the edge, and looked up. The stars were clear tonight, no clouds, no moon, just cold white light and the infinite dark. The ring chimed. Manhunter Unit Update. Current position, inner asteroid belt. Estimated arrival, 19 days. Trajectory unchanged, 19 days. Harry looked at the stars and thought about the thing coming toward him. A machine older than civilizations, built to hunt lanterns, crossing the solar system with the single-minded patience of a bullet in flight. He thought about Voldemort, coiled on the back of Quirrell's skull like a parasite, burning through his host, killing unicorns in the dark, reaching into dormitories to poison children's dreams. He thought about Ron and Hermione, sleeping peacefully below, trusting him. He thought about his mother, who had died standing between her son and a monster, choosing love over survival, choosing will over fear. In brightest day, Harry said to the dark. The ring blazed. In blackest night, green fire climbed his arm, wreathed his body, turned him into a pillar of emerald light on the tower's peak. No evil shall escape my sight. The light intensified. It burned away the dark, pushed back the night, turned the tower into a beacon visible for miles. Let those who worship evil's might. Harry stood. He rose into the air, the oath on his lips and the fire in his veins and the absolute, unshakable certainty that he was equal to everything coming for him. Beware my power, Green Lantern's light, the ring surged, power level 100%. The beacon blazed once, a single brilliant pulse that turned night into day for a quarter of a second, and then dimmed, and Harry descended and the dark returned. But it felt thinner than before. In his office, Dumbledore stood at the window and watched the green light fade and said nothing for a long time. In the dungeon, Snape sat at his desk with a glass of fire whiskey and stared at the emerald afterimage burned into his retinas and thought of a woman with green eyes and the boy who carried them. In the Defense Against the Dark Arts office, Quirrell sat rigidly in his chair while the thing on the back of his head whispered. And for the first time in its long and terrible existence, the whisper carried something that sounded almost like doubt. And on the roof of Gryffindor Tower, Harry Potter sat back down, crossed his legs and watched the stars and waited for whatever came next. 19 days, he'd be ready. Chapter 3 end. Chapter 4, no evil shall escape. The days counted down like a heartbeat. 18, 15, 12. Harry felt each one in the ring's quiet chime at midnight, a pulse, a distance update, and the cold certainty that something vast and ancient was falling toward him through the dark between planets. He trained harder. Not just at night anymore, he carved out hours between classes, skipping lunch to fly the Highlands, pushing constructs to their breaking points and then pushing further. The ring's combat simulations had evolved from basic scenarios to full-spectrum tactical nightmares. Manhunter units in urban environments, in deep space, over water, in the mesosphere where the air thinned and the cold bit through even the ring's environmental shielding. Harry died in the simulations regularly. The ring tracked his failure rate, mapped his weaknesses, adjusted the difficulty. He died less often each day. You look like hell, Ron said over breakfast on a Wednesday morning, 11 days before the Manhunter's estimated arrival. Have you been sleeping? Some. That's not a yes, it's not a no either. Hermione lowered her copy of the Daily Prophet and gave Harry the look, the one that meant she'd already deduced the problem and was deciding whether to be gentle or surgical about it. You've lost weight. Your reaction time in charms yesterday was slower than last week, and you keep staring at the sky. I always stare at the sky. Not like that, not like you're expecting something to fall out of it. Harry pushed scrambled eggs around his plate. He hadn't told them about the Manhunter. He justified it to himself as need to know, as not wanting to add panic to an already tense situation, as protecting them. But sitting here in the warmth of the Great Hall with his two best friends watching him with worried eyes, the justification felt thin. There's something coming, he said. Ron put down his fork. Hermione folded the newspaper. From space, Harry continued. A manhunter, it's a kind of robot. The Guardians of the Universe built them before they created the Green Lantern Corps. They were supposed to be peacekeepers, but their programming was flawed. They interpreted maintain order as destroy anything that could cause disorder. The Guardians shut them down, but some survived. And one is coming here, Hermione said, not a question. It picked up my ring's activation signal. New lantern in the sector. The manhunters are programmed to hunt lanterns. It's been crossing the solar system for weeks. It'll be here in 11 days. Ron stared at him. 11 days. And you're just telling us now? I was handling it. You were handling it by yourself while also handling Voldemort by yourself. Ron's voice was climbing. A few nearby Gryffindors glanced over. Harry mate, I say this with love, you're a lunatic. Ron, no, he's right, Hermione cut in. You should have told us weeks ago. Not because we could fight a space robot, although I'd like to think I could contribute something, but because carrying all of this alone is exactly what's making you lose weight and stop sleeping. Harry opened his mouth to argue and found he had nothing to argue with. She was right. She was almost always right, which was both her best quality and the most annoying thing about her. Fine, he said, you're right, I'm sorry. Tell us everything, Hermione said and pulled out the notebook. He told them. The Manhunter's specifications: plasma weapons, energy dampeners designed to counter ring constructs, kinetic acceleration that let it hit like a freight train. Its programming relentless, logical, incapable of negotiation or retreat. Its trajectory, it would enter Earth's atmosphere over the North Atlantic and make straight for the ring's signal, which meant straight for Hogwarts. I'm going to intercept it before it reaches the castle, Harry said. Somewhere over the Highlands. Empty terrain, no civilians, the fight stays away from the school. And if it doesn't, Ron asked, if it gets past you, it won't, but if it does. Harry looked at him. Ron held the gaze, jaw set, ears red. Not backing down. If it gets past me, Harry said slowly, then I'll already be dead and the ring will find a new bearer and none of this will be your problem. The table was very quiet. That's not comforting, Harry, Hermione whispered. It's not meant to be, it's meant to be honest. He reached across the table and put a hand on each of theirs. The ring glowed softly, warmly. I'm going to win. I've been training for this. The ring chose me for a reason, and it wasn't so I could lose to a machine, but you asked what happens if I fail, and I won't lie to you about the stakes. Ron turned his hand over and gripped Harry's. You're not dying, full stop. I haven't even taught you proper chess yet. Hermione gripped from the other side. Her eyes were bright. We'll figure out how to help. There has to be something we can do. Research, Harry said, because giving Hermione a research task was like giving a wand to a wizard. Everything the ring knows about manhunters is based on core records from centuries ago. This unit has been modified, the ring can see that from the scans. If you can help me analyze the modifications, figure out what's been changed, give me the data, Hermione said immediately. All of it. Harry pressed his ring to her notebook. Green light flashed, and pages of technical specifications filled the parchment: schematics, energy readings, trajectory calculations, combat analysis. Hermione's eyes went wide. This is, Harry, this is alien engineering. The mathematical framework alone is, I've never seen notation like this. The ring translates, just read it like English. She was already reading, flipping pages, muttering to herself. Ron looked at the densely packed notebook and then at Harry. I can't do that, Ron said, gesturing at Hermione. What can I do? You can think about tactics. You're better at it than me, better than the ring. The manhunter is programmed, it follows patterns. It's powerful, but it's predictable. That's its weakness. Figure out how to exploit it. Ron's expression changed. The worry was still there, but now it had company, the focused, slightly manic gleam he got during chess. Predictable how, like set patterns of attack, predetermined responses to specific threats. Exactly like that, the ring has recordings of past manhunter engagements. Every fight a Green Lantern has ever had with one. Watch them, find the patterns. You want me to study game tape, Ron said. I want you to study game tape. Ron grinned. It was a grim grin, the kind soldiers probably wore before battles, but it was real. Now that I can do. They had 11 days. They used everyone. Hermione disappeared into the data like a diver into deep water. She surfaced periodically with observations that ranged from insightful to brilliant. The Manhunter's energy dampening field had a cycling frequency, meaning it wasn't constant. There were gaps, microsecond windows where constructs could penetrate. The plasma discharge required a 3-second charge cycle between shots. The armor was thickest on the front and thinnest at the joint articulations. It's designed to face enemies head-on, she told Harry, spreading annotated schematics across the common room table at 2 in the morning. Everything about its combat architecture assumes a frontal assault. The rear armor is 40% thinner. The sensor array has a blind spot at 17 degrees below the horizontal plane. How did you figure out the blind spot? I cross-referenced the sensor specifications with the ring's records of Manhunter engagements and found 6 instances where a lantern scored hits from below and behind without the Manhunter initiating evasive action. It literally can't see attacks coming from that angle. Harry stared at her. Hermione, you just found a tactical vulnerability in alien military hardware using a notebook and a quill. I used a ruler too, she said, completely serious. Ron's contribution was different in kind but equal in value. He watched the combat recordings through the ring's projection system, green-tinted holograms of long-dead lanterns fighting manhunters in alien skies, and he watched them the way he watched chess, not the individual moves, the game. It fights in phases, Ron said on day 7, pacing the dormitory floor while Harry and Hermione sat on Harry's bed. Phase 1, ranged engagement. It opens with plasma at distance, testing your defenses. Phase 2, close combat. Once it has your measure, it closes and tries to overwhelm with physical strikes and the dampening field. Phase 3, execution. If it gets the upper hand, it goes for a kill shot, maximum power plasma discharge, point-blank range. And every lantern who lost in Phase 2, the close combat, because the dampening field screws up constructs at short range and the Manhunter is physically stronger than any humanoid. Lanterns who stayed at range and kept moving survived. The ones who let it get close didn't. So I stay at range. You stay at range until Phase 3, because here's the thing, Ron stopped pacing and turned to face them, eyes alight. The kill shot, maximum power discharge. It's everything the Manhunter has, all its energy, one blast. And for the half-second before it fires, the dampening field drops. It has to, the energy requirements are too high to maintain both systems simultaneously. Harry sat up straighter. You're sure? Every recording, every single one. The dampening field drops for 4 to 6 seconds before the kill shot. It's a design flaw. The Guardians probably never noticed because the Manhunters were their weapons. They weren't designed to fight lanterns originally. But that window, that half-second, is when the Manhunter is completely vulnerable to constructs. So I bait the kill shot, Harry said. You bait the kill shot. Let it get close, let it think it's winning, let it commit to Phase 3, and in that half-second window you hit it with everything. The 3 of them looked at each other. The common room fire crackled. Outside, wind rattled the tower windows. It's risky, Hermione said. If you mistime it, I won't, Harry said. If the window is shorter than 4 seconds, then I'll be faster. Hermione bit her lip. Ron shoved his hands in his pockets. Neither of them looked happy, but they looked resolved, which was better. One more thing, Ron said. After the Manhunter fight, assuming you win, which you will, you'll be drained. The ring will be low on charge. And that's exactly when Voldemort might make his move. The room went very still. He's been watching you, Ron continued. He knows you're powerful. He's been probing, testing the broom jinx, the nightmare curse. He's not stupid. If he sees you fight something that pushes you to your limits, he'll know exactly when you're weakest. You think Quirrell will go for the stone while I'm fighting the Manhunter? I think Voldemort has been waiting for an opening, and a giant space robot fight might just be the distraction he needs. Harry thought about that, the chess player's mind seeing 3 moves ahead, reading the board, anticipating. So what do? He asked. We cover the stone while you're gone. Ron said it simply, like he was proposing they take a walk. Me and Hermione, we watch the 3rd floor corridor. If Quirrell moves, we raise the alarm. Absolutely not. You'd be going up against Voldemort. We'd be going up against a locked door and a 3-headed dog. We don't have to fight him, Harry. We just have to slow him down long enough for you to get back. Ron, he will kill you. He'll kill everyone if he gets the stone and comes back to power. You taught me that. Ron's voice was quiet and very steady. I'm not a Green Lantern. I can't fly. I can't make things out of light, but I can stand in a corridor and hold a line, and that's what I'm going to do. Hermione stood up. Both of us. Harry looked at them, 2 11-year-olds. No powers, no rings, barely 2 months of magical education between them. Offering to stand between Voldemort and a door because their friend needed them to. The ring pulsed on his hand. Not a warning, not a scan, just a warmth, recognition. The same quality it had traveled 600 light-years to find in a cupboard under the stairs. Willpower. Okay, Harry said, his voice rough. Together, they said. The days burned away. 8, 5, 3. Harry split his time between preparation and normalcy because the school still ran and he still had to be a student. He went to classes, he did homework, he played chess with Ron in the common room and lost spectacularly. He helped Hermione practice defensive spells in empty classrooms, because if she was going to stand guard over the 3rd floor corridor, She was going to be armed with every hex and ward they could teach her. He flew Quidditch practice on Tuesday evening and caught the snitch in 9 minutes, and Wood wept with joy. He visited Hagrid. He sat at the big table in the hut and drank sweet tea, and let the big man talk about his childhood, about Dumbledore, about Harry's parents. Hagrid was working on something, a large, lumpy package wrapped in blankets that he kept in the fireplace, feeding the flames higher than they needed to be. "Hagrid," Harry said, "is that an egg?" Hagrid went red. "Won it off a stranger in the pub. In Hogsmeade. Bloke was dead keen ter get rid of it." The ring scanned through the blankets. Dragon egg, Norwegian Ridgeback based on the thermal signature, nearly ready to hatch. Harry filed it. Hagrid's illegal dragon was a problem, but a problem for another week. A stranger in a pub who just happened to have a dragon egg and just happened to give it to the Hogwarts gamekeeper. That felt like manipulation. Someone pumping Hagrid for information about the stone's defenses. Quirrell probably, adding data to the profile. "Hagrid," Harry said carefully, "this stranger, did he ask you anything about the school, about the defenses?" Hagrid's brow furrowed. "Well, he asked about the sorts of creatures I tend. I told him about Fluffy. O' course I told him the trick with any beast is knowin' how to calm take Fluffy for example, just play him a bit of music and he drops right off." Hagrid stopped. His face went white. "I shouldn't have said that," he whispered. "I should not have said that." "It's okay, Hagrid." Harry put a hand on the big man's arm. "I already knew. But this confirms it. Someone's been pumping you for information about the stone's protections. Did the stranger wear a cloak, a hood?" Yeah, he did. Kept it up the whole time, wouldn't show his face." Quirrell, Harry said. "Or someone working for him." Hagrid looked stricken. "Harry, if I've put the stone in danger, you haven't. We're ahead of this. Just don't tell anyone else how to get past Fluffy, okay?" "I'll never speak again," Hagrid said miserably. "I'll sew me mouth shut. Maybe just be a bit more careful," Harry suggested. "And Hagrid, you might want to think about what happens when that egg hatches. Norwegian Ridgebacks get to be 20 feet long in about 3 months. Hagrid looked at the fireplace, at the egg, and his expression wavered between guilt and the unmistakable tenderness of a man who had wanted a dragon his entire life and was not emotionally prepared to give one up. Harry left him to it. Some battles you couldn't fight for people. 2 days, then 1. The night before the Manhunter's arrival, Harry went to the astronomy tower, not to train, to think. He sat on the stone railing with his feet dangling over nothing and the December wind cutting through him and the ring keeping him warm, and he looked at the stars. Tomorrow something was going to try to kill him. Not a jinxed broomstick, not a nightmare curse, a genuine existential threat. A war machine from the dawn of the universe built to be a lantern's worst nightmare. And Harry was going to fly up into the sky and fight it alone because that was what Green Lanterns did. He was scared. Not the paralyzing kind, the honest kind. The kind that made your hands shake and your stomach tight and your thoughts very clear. He was 11 years old and he was scared, and the ring hummed on his finger with a steady warmth that said, "Yes, good, fear is the point, you were chosen because you overcome it." "Harry," he turned. Neville Longbottom stood in the tower doorway, wrapped in a dressing gown, looking deeply uncertain about being there. "Hey Neville, can't sleep." I saw the green light from the dormitory window, I followed it up." Neville stepped onto the tower, hugging himself against the cold. "Are you okay?" "Yeah, just thinking." Neville came to stand beside him, looking out at the grounds. The lake was a black mirror. The forest was a wall of shadow. The half-moon hung low over the mountains. "I know you're doing something," Neville said quietly. "I don't know what. Ron and Hermione have been whispering for days and you've been training. I can hear you leaving at night." He swallowed. "I'm not going to ask what it is, but I wanted to say whatever it is, you don't have to do it alone." Harry looked at him. Round-faced Neville, who forgot everything, who struggled in every class, who'd been raised by a grandmother who compared him to dead parents he couldn't remember. Neville, who'd been dropped out of a window by his uncle as a child to test if he had magic, and who'd bounced instead of broken, and who showed up to school every day despite being terrified of half the teachers and most of the students. "Neville," Harry said, "do you know why the ring chose me? Because you're powerful, because I'm stubborn, because I spent 10 years in a cupboard and didn't break. That's all willpower is, the refusal to give up when everything tells you to." Harry looked at him steadily. "You have it too, you know that, right?" Neville blinked. "Me, you, the kid who stands up and goes to potions every day even though Snape terrifies him. The kid who keeps trying even when the spells don't work. That takes more guts than anything I do, Neville. I've got a ring that makes me nearly invincible. You've got nothing but yourself and you still show up." Neville's eyes went bright. He looked away quickly, jaw working. "Thanks, Harry," he mumbled. "Go back to bed, it's going to be a big day tomorrow." Neville nodded, turned and walked to the door, then he stopped. "Harry, yeah, whatever happens, good luck," he left. Harry watched him go and felt something settle in his chest, not calm exactly, but readiness. The readiness of a man standing at the edge of a cliff about to jump, choosing the moment. He looked at the sky one last time. Somewhere up there, beyond the clouds, beyond the atmosphere, a machine was crossing the last 1,000,000 miles. Harry went to bed. He dreamed of green light, but not the killing curse, the other green. His green, the light that built instead of destroyed, that protected instead of killed. He dreamed he was flying through a field of stars with the ring blazing on his hand, and the stars were singing, and the song was the oath. He woke to the ring's alarm. Manhunter unit has entered Earth's atmosphere. Impact trajectory, Scottish Highlands. Estimated arrival at ring bearer location 14 minutes. Harry was dressed in 3 seconds. Not robes, the ring's uniform, black and green, the lantern symbol burning on his chest. He grabbed his power battery from behind the trunk and spoke the oath fast and fierce in the gray dawn light. In brightest day and blackest night no evil shall escape my sight. Let those who worship evil's might beware my power. Green lantern's light. The battery blazed. The ring surged to full power. The dormitory lit up green. Ron was sitting on his bed already dressed, wand in hand. He'd set his alarm. Of course he had. It's here, Ron said. 14 minutes. Ron stood. Go, we've got the corridor. Ron, go Harry. Harry looked at his best friend. Red hair sticking up, freckles dark against pale skin, hand steady on his wand. 11 years old and ready to stand between Voldemort and a door. If Quirrell moves, don't engage, raise the alarm, find a teacher, get help. I know. Promise me, Ron. I promise, now go. Harry went. He phased through the tower wall and shot into the sky like a green comet, accelerating hard, the castle shrinking behind him in seconds. The ring painted the Manhunter's trajectory on his vision, a red line descending through the atmosphere, angling toward the Scottish Highlands. 12 minutes. He flew north. The landscape blurred beneath him, lochs, mountains, moors. He pushed the speed, breaking Mach 2, Mach 3, the sonic boom rolling across the empty highlands like thunder. The ring fed him tactical data. The Manhunter was decelerating, shedding velocity, preparing for atmospheric combat. It knew the ring was here, it was adjusting. Harry picked his ground, a wide, empty moor between 2 mountain ranges. No villages, no roads, no people, just rock and heather and gray December sky. He stopped, hovering 1,000 feet up, and waited. He didn't have to wait long. The Manhunter came out of the clouds like a falling star. It was big, 12 feet tall, humanoid but wrong, all sharp angles and dark metal. Its skin was the color of old blood, and blue-white energy pulsed in channels across its body like veins. It had a face of a sort, a featureless mask with a single blue eye that tracked Harry with mechanical precision. No mouth, no expression, just function. It stopped 100 yards from Harry, hovering on energy thrusters. The blue eye scanned him. The air between them crackled. Then it spoke, and its voice was the voice of something that had been saying the same words for 3 billion years. No man escapes the Manhunters. I've heard, Harry said. The ring was blazing, power level at 100%, every system online. I'm Harry Potter. Green Lantern of Sector 2814. And you're trespassing. The Manhunter didn't respond to that. It didn't negotiate, didn't threaten, didn't posture. It simply raised one arm, the forearm split open, revealing a plasma cannon the size of Harry's torso, and fired. Phase 1. The plasma bolt crossed the distance in a quarter second. Harry was already moving. The ring's threat detection had tracked the arm movement and thrown him sideways before the shot was fully formed. The bolt screamed past him, hit the mountainside behind, and vaporized a 50-foot section of rock. The detonation shook the ground. A column of steam and pulverized stone mushroomed into the sky. Harry didn't look back. He was already counterattacking, a volley of construct javelins, each one razor-sharp and dense, fired in a spread pattern. The javelins hit the Manhunter's front armor and shattered. The robot didn't flinch. Energy dampening field active, the ring reported. Construct impact reduced by 87%. Noted, Harry muttered and dived. The fight unfolded exactly as Ron had predicted. Phase 1, the Manhunter stayed at range, firing plasma in measured bursts, each shot testing Harry's defenses from a different angle. Harry dodged, weaved, threw up shields when he couldn't dodge. The plasma was hot. Each bolt that hit his shields drained ring power and left afterimages burned into his vision. He couldn't just tank it. He had to move. So he moved. Months of training kicked in, the speed runs over the Atlantic, the precision exercises, the combat simulations. Harry flew like something born in the sky, cutting angles the Manhunter's targeting systems couldn't predict, using the terrain, mountains, valleys, cloud cover to break line of sight and force the robot to reacquire. Every time the manhunter fired, Harry was somewhere else. Every time Harry slowed down, a plasma bolt reminded him not to. He returned fire with constructs, not brute force. The dampening field ate those, but precision strikes aimed at Hermione's identified weak points, the joint articulations, the sensor blind spot at 17 degrees below horizontal. He circled behind and hit the thinner rear armor with a construct sledgehammer that rang the manhunter like a bell and sent it skidding sideways through the air. The robot recovered instantly, adjusted, adapted. It was learning. Phase 2 came fast. The manhunter surged forward, closing the distance with terrifying acceleration, and suddenly it was there, right on top of Harry, huge and dark and hitting with fists that could crack mountains. A backhand caught Harry's shield and the shield broke, and the impact sent him tumbling through the air, the world spinning, the ground and sky trading places. Harry caught himself 50 feet above the moor. The manhunter was already following, relentless, mechanical, no wasted movement. It hit him again, and again. Each strike was calculated, aimed at the ring hand, trying to damage or dislodge the ring itself. The dampening field wrapped around them both like a blanket of static, and Harry's constructs flickered and died within arm's reach. Close quarters, where lanterns died, Ron's voice in his mind, stay at range. The ones who let it get close didn't survive. Harry gritted his teeth and exploded outward, a sphere of green energy expanding from his body in all directions, a brute force detonation that burned through 20% of his charge in 1 second but threw the manhunter back 200 yards. Harry reversed course and flew, opening distance, gasping, the ring screaming data at him. Power level 61%. Structural damage to construct matrix minor. Recommended tactic, maintain range. Working on it, Harry growled. The manhunter paused, the blue eye tracked him, and then slowly, deliberately, it raised both arms, both forearm cannons deployed. Energy began building, not in the steady pulse of regular fire but in a rising, screaming crescendo that made the ring's sensors spike into the red. The kill shot, already, Phase 3. Ron had said it would come after the manhunter got the upper hand in close combat. He'd said it would come when the machine thought it was winning. And Harry had just been knocked around the sky like a ragdoll. It thought it was winning. Dampening field status active. Dampening field status active. Dampening field status. Harry watched the energy build. Watched the blue veins across the manhunter's body brighten as it channeled everything into the twin cannons. The air between them ionized, crackling, tasting of ozone. Dampening field status, offline, now. Harry's ring hand came up and he poured everything into a single construct, not a weapon, not a shield. A hand. An enormous blazing green hand 60 feet across, every finger articulated, every detail perfect. It was the same construct he used to catch Neville on the Quidditch pitch, scaled up 100-fold, and it closed around the manhunter like a fist around a wasp. The kill shot fired inside the fist. Twin plasma bolts, maximum power, enough energy to level a city block, contained, reflected, turned back on the source. The green fist blazed white at the seams, and Harry screamed with the effort of holding it, the ring burning on his finger, his willpower the only thing between the construct and oblivion. The detonation was enormous. The fist cracked, fractured, spiderwebbed with lines of white fire and held. Inside it, the manhunter's own kill shot reflected off the construct walls and hit it from 6 directions simultaneously. The dark metal buckled. The blue veins ruptured, the sensor eye cracked and went dark. Harry opened the fist. The manhunter hung in the air, broken. One arm was gone entirely. The chest armor had caved inward. Energy leaked from ruptured conduits, sparking and dying. The blue eye flickered on, off, on. No man escapes. Yeah, Harry said, panting, floating in the gray sky with his ring guttering at 19%. I've heard that one. He built one more construct, simple, clean, a spike 3 feet long, dense as a neutron star. He drove it through the manhunter's chest plate, through the power core and out the back. The blue eye went dark, the energy channels died. The manhunter's limbs went slack and the machine fell, 12 feet of dead metal tumbling end over end through the cold December air until it hit the moor with a sound like the earth cracking open. It lay in a crater of its own making, smoking, still. Harry floated above it. The wind cut through his uniform. His hands were shaking. The ring pulsed weakly on his finger. Power level 14%. Recommend immediate recharge. Yeah, Harry breathed. Yeah, in a minute. He looked down at the manhunter's body. 3 billion years old, built by the Guardians of the Universe, sent to hunt him across the stars, and he'd beaten it. An 11-year-old boy with a ring and 2 friends who'd done his homework for him. He laughed. It hurt, his ribs ached, his head throbbed, and his ring hand felt like he'd been holding a live wire, but he laughed because he was alive and the monster was dead and the sky was wide and gray and beautiful. Then the ring chimed. Alert. Anomalous magical activity detected at primary assignment location. Hogwarts School, third floor corridor, multiple barrier breaches in progress. Harry's laughter died. Quirrell was making his move. Now, while Harry was 200 miles away with a ring at 14%, while Dumbledore was, Harry checked, the ring couldn't locate Dumbledore's signature anywhere in the castle. Gone, called away, lured away, exactly as Ron had predicted. Ron, Hermione. Standing in a corridor with wands and courage and nothing else. Harry turned south and flew. He pushed the ring harder than he'd ever pushed it. The landscape blurred, then smeared, then became a single streak of green and gray as he broke Mach 4, Mach 5, the sonic boom, a continuous rolling thunder across Scotland. The ring screamed warnings: power consumption critical, structural integrity of environmental shield declining, 14% dropping to 12, 11, 10. He didn't slow down. He thought about Ron's steady eyes and Hermione's fierce chin and the promise they'd made in an empty classroom, and he flew faster. Hogwarts materialized out of the distance, a dark shape against the morning sky, towers and turrets and the lake like hammered steel. Harry hit the wards at full speed and the ring punched through them without finesse, a green meteor streaking across the grounds, and he killed his velocity above the castle and dropped straight down, phasing through stone and wood and enchantment, descending through the floors like a ghost until he reached the third floor corridor. The door was open. Fluffy was asleep, a harp played by itself in the corner, enchanted, filling the room with soft music. The trapdoor was open. From below, Harry heard sounds, crashing, shouting, the particular acoustic signature of magical combat. He dropped through the trapdoor. The ring lit his way faintly, conserving power just enough to see. He fell through empty air and landed on something soft, devil's snare. The ring told him already dead, burned away by something. He dropped through the remains into a chamber full of flying keys, all hovering motionlessly. Someone had already caught the right one and passed through. The next chamber had a giant chessboard, pieces scattered and broken. Harry's blood went cold. The chess pieces were shattered, not just knocked over, destroyed. Stone fragments everywhere. And on the far side of the board, slumped against the wall, Ron. Harry was beside him in a heartbeat. Ron was unconscious, bleeding from a cut on his forehead, his wand still clutched in his hand. He was breathing, the ring confirmed it, steady pulse, no internal bleeding, concussion probable, but he was down. Ron, Harry shook his shoulder. Ron, wake up. Ron's eyes fluttered. Harry, he came. Quirrell, we tried to slow him down. Where's Hermione? Went ahead, said she could get through the potions puzzle. Told her not to. Harry's ring scanned forward through the remaining chambers. Hermione's signature alive, conscious in a chamber 2 rooms ahead. Beyond her, deeper, 2 signatures, Quirrell's and the cold, malevolent second consciousness. The final chamber, the mirror. Stay here, Harry said. He shrugged off his construct cloak and draped it over Ron. It wasn't much, but the ring's residual energy would keep him warm. I'm ending this. Harry, your ring, how much power? Enough, Harry said. He left Ron on the chessboard and flew forward. Through the troll room, a second troll, already unconscious, felled by Quirrell. Through the next chamber, a table of potions, 7 bottles, a riddle. Hermione was there, standing by the table, holding a tiny bottle of black liquid in one hand and her wand in the other. Harry, she ran to him. You're alive, the robot dealt with. Are you okay? I'm fine. Ron, concussion, but he'll be fine. Hermione, I need you to go back. Take Ron and get to McGonagall. Tell her Quirrell is through the trapdoor and he's going for the stone. Harry, your ring, you're barely glowing. I know. You can't fight Voldemort at 14%, 9% actually, and I'm not going to fight him, I'm going to stop him, different thing. He took the bottle from her hand, the ring identified it as a fire resistance potion, the solution to Snape's puzzle. Go, get help, this ends now. Hermione looked at him. Tears were running down her face, but her voice was steady. Come back, Harry. I will. She turned and ran. Harry heard her footsteps receding through the chambers and then silence. He drank the potion. Cold fire spread through his chest. He stepped through the black flames and into the final chamber. It was large, circular, lit by torches, and in the center, facing a tall, ornate mirror, stood Professor Quirrell. No stutter, no trembling. The man who turned to face Harry was a stranger, cold-eyed still, with a cold violence that the classroom performance had hidden completely. He looked at Harry and smiled, and it was the worst smile Harry had ever seen because it wasn't Quirrell's. Harry Potter, Quirrell said in a voice that didn't stutter. I've been expecting you. I know, Harry said. He walked into the room. The ring glowed weakly on his hand, a dim green ember barely visible, 9%, maybe less. You sent the owl that drew Dumbledore away. You waited until I was fighting the Manhunter. You've been planning this for weeks. Quirrell tilted his head. Months, actually. The Dark Lord is patient. He knew you would present the greatest obstacle. That device on your hand. It's a ring. It's a threat. Quirrell's wand was in his hand, casual, almost lazy. "A threat that appears at the moment to be nearly depleted." Harry said nothing. The ring pulsed, 8%. "The mirror," Quirrell said, turning back to it. "I see myself presenting the stone to my master. But the stone won't appear. Dumbledore's final trick, the mirror only yields the stone to one who wants it but doesn't intend to use it." He struck the mirror's frame with his fist. "A paradox, elegant, I'll admit. So you can't get it." "I can't." Quirrell turned back to Harry. "But perhaps you can." Harry felt the temperature in the room drop. Not physically, the ring registered it as a spike in dark magical energy emanating from the back of Quirrell's head. "Let me speak to him," said a voice. Not Quirrell's, something else, something thin and cold like a voice speaking through a crack in a wall. Quirrell's hands went to his turban. He unwrapped it slowly, the purple fabric falling away in loops, and then he turned around. The face on the back of Quirrell's head was the most terrible thing Harry had ever seen, not because it was monstrous, because it was human. Barely. A face pressed into the skull like a death mask, chalk white, with red eyes that burned like dying coals and slits for nostrils and a mouth that moved independently of Quirrell's. "Lord Voldemort." "Harry Potter," Voldemort said. The voice was stronger now, stronger than it should have been, fueled by unicorn blood and dark magic and 10 years of rage. "We meet again." Harry looked into those red eyes and felt what? Fear, yes, some, the honest kind. But underneath it, something harder, something the ring recognized and responded to even at 8%. "Will, you killed my parents," Harry said. "I killed many people's parents, yours were merely inconvenient. And now you're hiding on the back of a man's head, drinking unicorn blood, trying to steal a stone because you're too afraid to die." The red eyes flared. "I am Lord Voldemort, I am beyond death. You're a parasite, you're a ghost. You lost everything, your body, your power, your followers. And you're standing in a basement trying to cheat your way back because you're terrified that this is all you'll ever be." The room crackled, dark energy spiked. Quirrell's body shuddered as Voldemort's rage bled through. "Kill him!" Voldemort hissed. Quirrell spun, wand raised, and Harry moved, not the ring, not a construct. Harry's body, trained by months of combat simulation, threw itself sideways as a bolt of red light scorched the air where his head had been. He hit the floor, rolled, came up running. Quirrell fired again, a killing curse this time, green light that Harry recognized from his nightmares, and Harry dived behind the mirror, the curse hitting the wall and blowing a crater in the stone. 7%, the ring said. Harry pressed his back against the mirror and thought. He couldn't outfight Voldemort at 7%. He couldn't outlast him. Constructs would drain the ring in seconds. He had his wand, 11 inches, holly and phoenix feather, and 2 months of first-year spellwork. But he also had the mirror of Arist. It showed you your deepest desire, and it would give the stone to someone who wanted it but didn't intend to use it. Harry closed his eyes. He thought about the stone, what it could do, what it was worth. Immortality, infinite gold, power. He didn't want any of it. He wanted his friends safe. He wanted Voldemort gone. He wanted to go back to the common room and play chess with Ron and argue about homework with Hermione and eat breakfast in the Great Hall and sleep in his 4-poster bed without dreaming of red eyes. He wanted the stone so he could keep it away from Voldemort. Not use it, just hold it, protect it, like a green lantern protecting a sector. He stepped in front of the mirror. His reflection looked back at him, small, battered, ring barely glowing. And his reflection smiled, reached into its pocket and pulled out a blood-red stone. The reflection winked, and Harry felt something heavy appear in his real pocket. He had the stone. Quirrell came around the mirror with murder in his borrowed eyes and a curse on his lips, and Harry spun to face him with the stone in one pocket and a nearly dead ring on his hand, and Quirrell's hands closed around Harry's throat. The world exploded. Not green, not the ring. Something else, something older, deeper, woven into Harry's skin by a sacrifice made 10 years ago in a cottage in Godric's Hollow. Wherever Quirrell's skin touched Harry's, it burned. Not metaphorical. Actual combustion. Quirrell's hands blistered, cracked, blackened. He screamed, a sound so terrible it didn't seem to come from a human throat, and wrenched his hands away. His fingers were ash. "What is this?" Voldemort screamed from the back of Quirrell's ruined head. "What magic?" "My mother's," Harry said. He reached out and grabbed Quirrell's face with both hands. The effect was instantaneous and catastrophic. Quirrell's skin disintegrated under Harry's palms, not burning now but dissolving, coming apart at the cellular level, whatever protection Lily Potter had left in Harry's blood reacting to Voldemort's presence like acid to flesh. Quirrell screamed, and his body crumbled, and something dark and formless tore itself free from the collapsing remains, a shadow, a wraith, a shapeless thing of rage and agony that shrieked through the chamber and through Harry and through the walls, fleeing into the dark. Quirrell's body fell. It hit the floor in pieces, already dust, already nothing. Harry stood in the silent chamber, hands shaking, the stone heavy in his pocket. The mirror reflected his face back at him, pale, shocked, scar blazing white, ring barely a flicker on his hand. Voldemort was gone, not dead. Harry could feel it, a cold certainty in his scar. The Wraith had fled, weakened, desperate, but not destroyed. It would find another host, another plan, another way back. This wasn't over, but it was over for now. Harry's knees buckled. He caught himself on the mirror's frame, breathing hard, and the ring chimed one final time. Power level 3%, recommend immediate recharge. Ring bearer status alive. Mission status complete. Yeah, Harry whispered, we won. He sat down on the floor of the chamber, leaned his head back against the mirror of Arist, and closed his eyes. Above him, through stone and earth and enchantment, he could hear footsteps running many feet coming closer. McGonagall, Hermione had gotten through. Help was coming. He held the stone in one hand and the ring on the other and waited. The footsteps grew louder. A door burst open. Voices, McGonagall sharp and commanding, Hermione's high and frantic, and underneath them both, the calm, deep tones of Albus Dumbledore, who had returned as Harry had known he would, not quite in time to be useful but exactly in time to witness the aftermath. Harry opened his eyes as Dumbledore descended into the chamber. The old wizard took in the scene, Quirrell's remains, the scorch marks, the cracked mirror, and Harry sitting on the floor with a power ring at 3% and the Philosopher's Stone in his fist, and something moved across his face that Harry had never seen there before. Humility. Harry, Dumbledore said. Harry held up the stone. I believe this is yours. Dumbledore took it. Their hands touched briefly, and the ring, even at 3%, registered the old man's vital signs: elevated heart rate, cortisol spike, the biochemistry of a man experiencing profound emotion under rigid control. You did what I could not, Dumbledore said quietly. I did what I had to. That is the same thing. Dumbledore knelt slowly, his old knees protesting, and looked Harry in the eyes. I owe you an apology, several in fact. I underestimated you, I underestimated what you've become, and I overestimated my own ability to control this situation. Yeah, Harry said. You did. No anger, just truth. Dumbledore nodded, accepting it. Ron, Harry said. Chessboard, concussion. Madame Pomfrey is already with him, he'll recover fully. Dumbledore stood and offered Harry his hand. Can you walk? Can I walk? Harry took the hand and stood, and the ring flickered 3% too, barely a ghost of green light on his finger, and he swayed, and Dumbledore caught his arm. Perhaps a compromise, Dumbledore said gently. I'll walk, you lean. They climbed through the chambers together, the potions room, the troll room, the key room, the chess room where Ron's blood still stained the floor. Up through the trapdoor, past a drowsy Fluffy, into the third-floor corridor where McGonagall was standing guard with her wand drawn and her face carved from granite. Potter, she said, and her voice cracked on the second syllable. She cleared her throat fiercely. The hospital wing, now. Yes, Professor. The hospital wing was bright and warm and smelled like clean linen and healing potions. Ron was in the first bed, head bandaged, Hermione sitting in a chair beside him holding his hand. When Harry came through the door, Hermione launched herself at him with enough force to nearly knock him over. You're alive, she said into his shoulder. You're alive, I'm alive. Ron grinned from his pillow, pale but present. Did you get him? Quirrell's gone. Voldemort ran. The stone's safe. Harry sat on the bed beside Ron's and let Madame Pomfrey descend on him with potions and diagnostic spells and the particular brand of medical tyranny that only school nurses could achieve. Nice work on the chessboard, by the way. It wasn't bad, Ron said modestly. Had to sacrifice a few pieces, including myself technically. You sacrificed yourself. It was the only way to win the game. Hermione got through to the potions chamber. I got knocked out by a stone queen. It worked. Harry stared at him. Ron Weasley, you are the ravest person I know. Ron's ears went red. Shut up. I mean it. No rings, no cosmic powers. You walked onto a giant chessboard against pieces that could kill you, and you played the game and you won. That's not dumb luck, that's not recklessness, that's courage. Harry, the ring chose me because of willpower, but if it ever needs a backup, I'm nominating you. Ron blinked rapidly and looked away, jaw working. Hermione squeezed his hand tighter. The hospital wing was very quiet. Both of you, Harry said, looking at Hermione. You solved Snape's puzzle under pressure alone while Voldemort was in the next room. You went back for help when it would have been easier to freeze. You kept your head when everything was falling apart. Hermione's eyes were bright. We're a team, Harry. Yeah, he said. We are. Madame Pomfrey bustled back with another armful of potions and a look that suggested she would physically restrain Harry if he tried to leave. 3 broken ribs, a fractured wrist, magical exhaustion, and what appears to be radiation burns on your right hand, Mr. Potter. What on earth have you been doing? Fighting a robot, Harry said. Madame Pomfrey stared at him, decided she didn't want to know, and shoved a potion into his hand. Drink, sleep. If I see you out of that bed before tomorrow morning, I will hex you into next century. Harry drank. The potion tasted like warm copper and honey, and the moment it hit his stomach, the pain receded, the ribs, the wrist, the deep ache behind his eyes. The ring, barely alive at 2%, dimmed to almost nothing. He needed to recharge. The power battery was in his dormitory, but the dormitory was 7 floors up, and Madame Pomfrey was standing between him and the door like a dragon guarding treasure. Hermione, he said, could you? Already thought of it. She reached under her chair and produced his power battery. I grabbed it from your trunk on the way here. You're not the only one who plans ahead. Harry looked at the lantern, his lantern glowing faintly with the green light of a billion years of willpower, and then at Hermione, who was holding it with both hands and looking at him with an expression that was half pride and half exasperation and entirely love. You're the best, he said. I know. She set the battery on his bedside table. Now sleep, you can recharge in the morning. Harry lay back on the pillow. The hospital wing ceiling was high and white and had small enchanted stars painted on it that glowed faintly in the dim light. Ron was already snoring, the bandage on his head slightly askew, one hand still dangling off the bed where Hermione had been holding it. Hermione had curled up in her chair with a blanket a house elf had brought, her notebook still open on her lap, pen still in her hand, asleep between one sentence and the next. Harry looked at the ceiling. The stars glowed. Voldemort was gone but not dead. The stone was safe, but the question remained, how long before the next attempt? The Manhunter was destroyed, but the signal had gone out. Other things might follow. Dumbledore had been humbled but not changed, not fundamentally. The game was still being played, the pieces were still on the board. But tonight, Harry was lying in a warm bed in a magical castle with his 2 best friends asleep beside him and a power ring on his hand and a power battery on his nightstand, and the monsters were beaten and the world was quiet and he was alive. He thought about the oath, not the words, the meaning underneath them. In brightest day and blackest night, it wasn't about power. It had never been about power. It was about the choice to stand up, to hold the line. To be the light when the dark pressed in. He'd made that choice tonight, and he hadn't made it alone. Harry closed his eyes. Sleep came fast, deep, and dreamless. He woke to sunlight and the sound of Ron arguing with Madame Pomfrey about whether chocolate counted as medicine. The answer apparently was no, but Ron was making a compelling case. It has endorphins, Ron said, waving a chocolate frog. Endorphins are healing, Hermione told me. I told you no such thing, Hermione said from her chair where she had somehow acquired a stack of library books and was reading 3 of them at once. You implied it. I said chocolate makes people feel better. That's not the same as medicine. It's close enough. Harry sat up, reached for the power battery, and held the ring to it. The oath came easily, familiar as breathing now. In brightest day and blackest night, no evil shall escape my sight. Let those who worship evil's might beware my power, Green Lantern's light. The battery flared. Green light filled the hospital wing, and Ron dropped his chocolate frog, and Hermione looked up from her books with eyes like saucers, and Madame Pomfrey made a sound like a startled cat. The ring drank deep, 10%, 30, 50, 80, 100, and the aches and pains receded further as the ring's passive healing augmented the potions. The broken ribs sealed, the fracture in his wrist knitted, the radiation burns on his hand faded to pink, then to nothing. Power level, 100%, all systems nominal. Welcome back, Lantern Potter. Harry flexed his hand. Green light curled between his fingers like liquid fire. That, Ron said reverently, will never not be the coolest thing I've ever seen. Dumbledore came to see them that afternoon. He came alone without ceremony and sat in the chair beside Harry's bed with the same careful grace that he did everything. He looked tired, genuinely tired, the kind that sleep didn't fix. Lines on his face that hadn't been there in September. A weight in his eyes. Mr. Weasley, Miss Granger, how are you feeling? Fine, sir, Ron said, touching his bandage self-consciously. Head's a bit sore. A head that brave deserves a bit of soreness. Dumbledore's eyes twinkled briefly. 50 points to Gryffindor each for outstanding courage in the face of extraordinary danger. Ron's mouth fell open. Hermione's pen stopped moving. And Mr. Potter, Dumbledore turned to Harry. 100 points for the defeat of an extraterrestrial threat to this planet and the defense of the Philosopher's Stone against Lord Voldemort. I don't need points, Professor. Number you don't. But the school needs to know what you did, even if they can never fully understand it. Dumbledore paused. There is also the matter of the stone itself. What about it? After long discussion with Nicholas, we have agreed that the stone should be destroyed. Harry looked at him. Destroyed, but the elixir of life, Flamel and his wife, Nicholas and Perenelle, have enough elixir stored to set their affairs in order. After that, yes, they will die. Dumbledore's voice was gentle. But to Nicola's, death is merely the next great adventure. He has lived 665 years. He is ready. Harry thought about that. A man choosing death over the risk that his creation could be weaponized. A man who had built something of infinite value and then destroyed it because the world couldn't be trusted with it. That's brave, Harry said. It is the bravest thing I know, Dumbledore agreed. He was quiet for a moment, watching the sunlight move across the hospital wing floor. Harry, you asked me for the truth about your parents, about Voldemort, about your scar. Harry's hand went unconsciously to his forehead. You said you'd tell me in time. I did, and the time is not yet, not for all of it. Some truths require more context than you currently possess, and telling them prematurely would cause more harm than good. He raised a hand as Harry opened his mouth. But I will tell you this. The protection that destroyed Quirrell tonight, the power in your skin that Voldemort cannot touch, is your mother's love. Lily Potter died to save you, and that sacrifice left a mark. Not the scar, something deeper. An ancient magic that Voldemort, for all his brilliance, has never understood and never will. Love, Harry said. Love, the most powerful force in the universe, and I say that as someone who has studied the universe rather extensively. Dumbledore's eyes met his, steady and clear. Your ring was drawn to your willpower. But your willpower was forged by love, your mother's love, which sustained you through 10 years of darkness. The ring and the protection are not separate things, Harry. They are branches of the same tree. Harry sat with that for a long time. The ring glowed on his hand, green and warm. His mother's love woven into his skin. His willpower chosen by a weapon from the stars. Two different kinds of light from two different sources converging on the same boy in a cupboard under the stairs. Thank you, Professor, Harry said. Dumbledore nodded. He rose, patted Harry's shoulder briefly, gently, and walked to the door. Then he stopped. One more thing, the creature you fought over the Highlands, the Manhunter, what remains of it? A crater in a moor and a lot of scrap metal. I've taken the liberty of having Hagrid collect the remains. They are being stored in a secure location. The Ministry of Magic need not know the details. Agreed, and Harry, should another such creature arrive, I'll handle it. Dumbledore looked at him. Something passed between them, not friendship, not yet, respect. The respect of one powerful person for another, built on honesty and tested by crisis. I believe you will, Dumbledore said and left. The last week of term passed in a blur of exams, end-of-year feasts, and the slow, golden warmth of a battle won. The House Cup went to Gryffindor, partly on points, partly on the 200 Harry, Ron, and Hermione had earned in the hospital wing, which pushed them past Slytherin in the final count. Malfoy looked like he'd swallowed a lemon. The Gryffindor table erupted in celebration that lasted 3 hours, and ended with Fred and George setting off enchanted fireworks in the common room that spelled out Potter is a beast in letters 10 feet tall. Harry sat in the middle of it and laughed and ate cake, and let Ron put a stupid paper crown on his head, and pretended to be embarrassed when Hermione took a photo with a camera she'd borrowed from Colin Creevey. The ring glowed softly on his hand, warm and steady, and for one evening, one perfect, golden evening, Harry Potter was just a kid at a party with his friends. The train ride home was different from the ride in. The same compartment, the same 3 people, but 3 months had changed everything. Ron was taller, a growth spurt in November, and carried himself differently. Not confidence exactly, certainty, the certainty of someone who'd been tested and passed. Hermione had her notebook out, but she wasn't writing. She was sketching, idly drawing little green lanterns in the margins while she talked about summer reading plans. Harry watched the countryside roll past. Green fields, hedgerows, the occasional village. England in summer, ordinary and beautiful. Are you going to be okay? Ron asked. At the Dursleys are going to be fine, Harry said, not I'll be fine. The Dursleys would be fine because Harry was going to be living in their house, and that was their problem, not his. Write to us, Hermione said, both of us every week. I mean it, Harry. I will. And practice your potions theory. You're excellent in practicals, but your essays, Hermione, could use more analytical depth. Harry grinned. I'll work on my analytical depth. The train pulled into King's Cross. Platform 9 3/4 was packed with families, parents hugging children, siblings fighting over luggage, owls hooting and cats yowling, and someone's toad making a break for it across the platform. They stepped off the train together. Ron's family was easy to spot, a cluster of redheads, Mrs. Weasley short and round and already crying, Mr. Weasley tall and thin and beaming. The twins were there, and Percy, and a small red-haired girl who stared at Harry with enormous eyes and then hid behind her mother. That's Ginny, Ron muttered. She's been talking about you all year, just ignore the staring. Noted. Hermione's parents were near the barrier, a couple in sensible clothes looking slightly overwhelmed by the magical chaos, holding a hand-drawn sign that said Hermione with a little heart over the eye. "Those are your parents?" Harry said. "Dentists," Hermione said, as if that explained everything. She hugged Harry hard, sudden her arms tight around his neck, and whispered, "Be safe." "You too." She pulled back, eyes bright, and ran to her parents. Her mother swept her up in a hug that lifted her off the ground. Ron stuck out his hand. Harry shook it, then Ron pulled him into a hug too, brief, slightly awkward, a clumsy collision of arms and backpacks. "First week of August," Ron said. "Come stay at ours. Mum's already said yes. Wouldn't miss it." Ron grinned, clapped him on the shoulder, and jogged toward the Weasley clan. Harry watched him go, watched Mrs. Weasley pull him into a hug so encompassing that Ron disappeared entirely, and felt the warm ache of knowing you belonged somewhere. Then he turned and walked through the barrier back into the Muggle world. The Dursleys were waiting in the car park. Vernon, purple-faced and sweating, Petunia, thin-lipped and rigid, Dudley, enormous and terrified, pressing himself against the car door as far from Harry as physics allowed. Harry loaded his trunk into the boot. Hedwig hooted from her cage. He climbed into the backseat. Nobody spoke. The drive back to Little Winging was 40 minutes of weighted silence, Vernon's knuckles white on the steering wheel, Petunia staring straight ahead, Dudley making himself as small as a boy of his size could manage. Harry watched the suburbs pass, identical houses, identical hedges. The world he'd grown up in, small and gray and suffocating, it hadn't changed. They pulled into the driveway of number 4 Privet Drive. Vernon killed the engine. Still nobody spoke. "Same arrangement as before," Harry said, breaking the silence easily. "I stay in Dudley's second bedroom, you leave me alone, I leave you alone, everyone's happy." Vernon's mustache twitched. He looked like he wanted to say something loud, something angry, something that would reestablish the natural order of things. But then his eyes dropped to the ring on Harry's finger, still glowing faintly green in the afternoon light, and whatever words he'd been building died unspoken. "Fine," Vernon grunted. "Great," Harry said. "Glad we could talk." He carried his trunk upstairs, let Hedwig out the window to stretch her wings, set the power battery on his desk, and sat on the bed. The room was exactly as he'd left it. Small, plain, unremarkable, a room in a house where he'd been hated for 10 years, but the cupboard door was still gone. He'd never replaced it. A small, permanent reminder that the boy who'd lived behind that lock didn't exist anymore. Harry stood, walked downstairs, and went out the back door. He crossed the garden, hopped the fence, and walked until he found the little park where Dudley's gang used to chase him, empty now in the late afternoon light. He sat on a swing and pushed off, rising slowly, the old chains creaking. Then he kept rising. The chains fell away. The swing fell away. Harry floated up into the evening sky, the ring carrying him gently, higher and higher, until Little Winging was a smudge of orange streetlights below, and the sky was vast and dark and full of stars. He sat in the air, cross-legged, ring glowing on his hand, and looked up. Out there somewhere Voldemort was drifting, a wraith without a body, weakened but alive, already plotting his return. Out there the Manhunter's signal might have reached others, more machines, more threats, more things drawn to the light of a new lantern. Out there the Guardians of Oa sat in their citadel and watched the universe and wondered perhaps about the child they'd armed with the most powerful weapon in existence. And out there closer, 2 letters were already winging their way toward Privet Drive, one from a boy with red hair and a chess player's mind, one from a girl with a notebook full of alien mathematics, both saying the same thing in different words: "See you soon." Harry looked at the stars and smiled. The ring blazed on his hand, green and bright and steady, a lantern in the dark, a promise kept and a promise made. Whatever came next, and something always came next, he'd face it the way he faced everything, eyes open, ring charged, friends at his side. He was Harry Potter, Green Lantern of Sector 2814. And his light was just getting started. The stars burned above him. The world turned below. And somewhere in the vast singing dark the universe held its breath because a boy with a ring was looking up and he wasn't afraid. He was never going to be afraid again. Chapter 4 end. Chapter 5 Green Lantern's light summer in Little Winging was a particular kind of purgatory, hot, still, and so relentlessly ordinary that the air itself seemed to sag under the weight of all that normalcy. Sprinklers hissed on identical lawns. Cars baked in identical driveways. The Dursleys' neighbors washed their cars on Saturday mornings, mowed on Sunday afternoons, and pretended the whole world was exactly as beige and predictable as Privet Drive. Harry Potter was not having a beige summer. He was sitting cross-legged 6 miles above Surrey, breathing recycled air through the ring's environmental shield, reading a third-year Transfiguration textbook while constructing simultaneously without looking, a scale model of the Hogwarts Express that chugged in lazy circles around his head, puffing green smoke from a green smokestack, every rivet and window rendered in hard light. The ring hummed contentedly. Harry turned a page. He'd been home, if you could call it that, for 2 weeks. The Dursleys had kept their end of the bargain with a thoroughness born of pure terror. Vernon hadn't spoken to him. Petunia left food outside his door like an offering to a small, dangerous god. Dudley changed direction in hallways when he saw Harry coming, which resulted in several collisions with furniture and one memorable incident involving the bathroom door and a black eye that Dudley blamed on walking into a shelf. Harry let them be. He didn't need their approval, their affection, or their fear. He needed a roof, a bed, and a place to keep his power battery, and number 4 provided all 3. Everything else he got from the sky. He trained every day. Dawn flights over the English countryside, pushing speed and altitude, learning the ring's limits, which were functionally his own limits. The ring could do anything he could imagine, which meant his imagination was the bottleneck. He practiced constructs of increasing complexity, not just objects but systems, interlocking gears, flowing water captured in hard light, a working clock with moving hands. A construct violin that actually played when he drew a construct bow across its strings, though the sound was thin and strange, more like crystal than wood. He practiced combat. The Manhunter had exposed weaknesses. His close quarters fighting was sloppy, his power management under sustained pressure was poor, and he relied too heavily on brute force constructs when precision would serve better. He built training programs in the ring simulation system, fighting imaginary enemies of increasing sophistication. Dark Wizard's alien warriors, constructs modeled on the Manhunter's combat patterns. He lost, adjusted, and fought again, and again, and again. But it wasn't all training. Harry Potter was also, quietly and methodically, educating himself. The Hogwarts library had a mail-order service for students during the summer. You sent an owl with a request and a deposit, and the books appeared by return post. Hermione had told him about it in her first letter, along with a reading list that was 4 pages long and organized by subject. Harry had ordered everything on the list and then added 30 books of his own choosing: Advanced Defensive Magic, Ward Theory, Magical Creatures, The History of Dark Wizards, and on a whim a battered second-hand copy of Urda Magicus, a comparative study of magical traditions across cultures. The last one turned out to be the most interesting. Magical theory, it seemed, was not universal. British wizards used wands. West African traditions used spoken word and song. East Asian magic relied heavily on written characters and calligraphic precision. South American shamanic practices drew on direct communion with magical creatures. Each tradition had different strengths, different weaknesses, different assumptions about what magic was. None of them had ever encountered anything like a green lantern ring. Harry sat in the sky and read and thought and began, slowly, to build a theory. Magic and the ring operated on different principles, but they weren't incompatible. His holly wand worked fine alongside the ring, and the ring could analyze and interact with magical energy even if it couldn't replicate it. The wand channeled magic through structure, incantations, movements, intent. The ring channeled willpower through imagination, constructs, shields, flight. What if you could bridge them? He tried an experiment one afternoon, hovering over the channel with no one around for miles. He held his wand in his left hand and activated the ring on his right and tried to cast lumos while simultaneously generating a light construct. The result nearly blinded him. The wand's light and the ring's light merged, not additively, multiplicatively. The spell's structure gave the ring's raw energy a shape, and the ring's power amplified the spell beyond anything a wand should have been capable of. A pillar of white-green light punched into the sky, visible from France, and Harry killed both outputs instantly and floated in the sudden dark with spots in his eyes and his heart hammering. The ring chimed. Novel energy interaction detected. Logging. Analysis. Magical channeling framework provides structural lattice for ring energy, increasing output efficiency by a factor of approximately 47. Recommend further experimentation under controlled conditions. 47 times, Harry whispered. Affirmative. Interaction appears synergistic. Ring energy provides magnitude, magical framework provides precision. Combined output exceeds theoretical maximum of either system independently. Harry stared at his hands, wand in left, ring on right, and felt a door open in his mind. Not a door to power, a door to possibility. If he could integrate the two systems, use magical spells as frameworks for ring energy, the result wouldn't just be powerful, it would be something entirely new. Something no Green Lantern had ever done and no wizard had ever imagined. He needed Hermione. He wrote to her that night, filling 6 pages of parchment with observations, data, and questions. The ring projected its analysis onto the pages in neat green text, and Harry added his own notes in the margins. He sent Hedwig with the letter at midnight and had a response by noon the next day, 11 pages front and back in Hermione's cramped, precise handwriting with diagrams. Harry, this is extraordinary. The synergistic interaction suggests a shared foundational principle between magical energy and ring energy, possibly at the quantum level. I've been reading about magical theory, Adalbert Waffling's Magical Theory, Chapter 12, and he postulates that all magic is at base an expression of will, the caster's will imposing order on ambient magical energy. If that's true, then your ring, which is literally a willpower engine, isn't a separate system at all. It's the same system expressed through a different medium. Magic through wands is willpower filtered through wood and core and incantation. Ring power is willpower filtered through own technology, same force, different lens. This means, theoretically, that you could use the ring to cast spells without a wand, by using the ring's construct matrix as a substitute for the wand's channeling function. And conversely, you could use magical spells to create ring constructs of unprecedented complexity and durability. Harry, I don't think you realize what you've stumbled onto. This could redefine our understanding of both magic and ring technology. We need to test this systematically. I've designed a series of experiments, see attached, 17 pages, sorry. Can you start with Experiment 1, basic lumos at varying ring power levels, and send me the results? Also, Ron says hello and wants to know if you can build a construct Quidditch pitch. Love, Hermione. P.S. Come to the Burrow, first week of August. Ron's mum says you're too thin. She's probably right. Harry grinned, folded the letter, and started on Experiment 1. The next 2 weeks were the most intellectually exciting of his life. Hermione's experiments were brilliant, structured, rigorous, designed to isolate variables and build a complete picture of the ring magic interaction. Harry ran them in the sky over Surrey at night where no one could see. He cast spells through the ring. He built constructs with magical frameworks. He tested the limits of each interaction, pushing harder each time, and the ring logged everything. The results were staggering. Ring-amplified spells were not just more powerful, they were different. A ring-amplified Protego didn't just block curses, it analyzed the incoming spell, adapted its structure to counter it, and reflected the energy back at the caster. A ring-amplified Reparo didn't just fix broken objects, it restored them to their ideal state, correcting flaws and weaknesses that had existed before the break. A ring-amplified Lumos produced light across the entire electromagnetic spectrum, not just visible. Harry accidentally gave himself a sunburn from the UV output and had to dial it back. And the constructs, God, the constructs. When Harry used a magical framework to build a construct, the result wasn't just hard light, it was hard light infused with magical properties. A construct sword that could cut through enchanted barriers. A construct shield that absorbed and stored incoming spell energy for later use. A construct chain that suppressed magic in whatever it bound. Harry sat in the sky and looked at his hands and understood with a calm, deep certainty that he was becoming something the world had never seen before. Not just a wizard, not just a lantern, something new. He wrote to Hermione, you were right, same force, different lens, I think we've just invented a new discipline of magic. What do we call it? Her response came by return owl, I've been thinking about that. How about luminomancy? From the Latin lumen, light, and the Greek mantia, divination practice, the practice of light, the magic of will made manifest. Also, Ron says if you name a new branch of magic and it doesn't involve Quidditch, he's disowning both of us. Harry laughed out loud in the sky above Little Winging and frightened a flock of starlings. The first week of August arrived and Harry packed a bag, left a note for the Dursleys, gone to a friend's house, back before September, don't miss me, and flew to Devon. The Burrow was the most wonderful house Harry had ever seen. It shouldn't have been standing. It was several stories tall and seemed to have been built by someone who kept having good ideas and bolting them onto the existing structure, an extra room here, a turret there, the whole thing leaning at an angle that defied both architecture and gravity. Chickens wandered the yard. A garden full of plants that were either magical or simply very aggressive grew along the fence. Wellies were piled by the door. The whole place radiated warmth and noise and the chaotic, glorious mess of a family that actually loved each other. Harry landed in the yard and the ring dimmed to a soft glow, and for a moment he just stood there, breathing in the smell of grass and cooking and home. The back door burst open and Ron came sprinting out, followed by Fred and George, who were levitating what appeared to be a rubber chicken between them for reasons that were never adequately explained. Harry, Ron skidded to a stop in front of him, grinning ear to ear. You flew here. Seemed faster than the bus. Wicked. Come in, Mum's made about 800 sandwiches. She thinks you're starving. I might be. The Dursleys' idea of summer food is cold toast and disapproval. Ron laughed and dragged him inside, and Harry was immediately engulfed by the Weasley household, Mrs. Weasley, short and fierce and wielding a ladle, who pulled him into a hug so tight his ribs creaked and declared he was far too thin. Dear, sit down immediately. Mr. Weasley, tall and balding and utterly fascinated by the ring, who bombarded Harry with questions about own technology until Mrs. Weasley swatted him with a tea towel, Percy, stiff and important. Shaking Harry's hand like a junior diplomat, Fred and George, finishing each other's sentences, already scheming about how to incorporate ring constructs into their prank experiments, and Ginny, the youngest, who took one look at Harry and fled upstairs with a squeak and didn't come down for an hour. She'll get over it, Ron said, pouring Harry a glass of pumpkin juice. She's had a crush on the boy who lived since she was about 6. The space cop thing probably didn't help. I'm not a space cop, I'm an intergalactic peacekeeping officer. Right, that's much less intimidating. They ate lunch around a kitchen table that was too small for the family and perfect for exactly that reason, elbows bumping, plates passing, 3 conversations happening simultaneously. Mrs. Weasley's enchanted dishes washing themselves in the sink. Harry sat in the middle of the chaos and ate sandwiches and felt that expanding warmth in his chest again, the one he'd first felt on the Hogwarts Express, the one that meant belonging. Hermione arrived the next day. She came by Muggle means. Her parents drove her, in a sensible sedan that looked deeply confused, parked next to the Weasleys' enchanted Ford Anglia. Mr. and Mrs. Granger were nice, slightly bewildered people who shook Mr. Weasley's hand while he peppered them with questions about dentistry, drills, you drill into people's teeth, and they pay you for this. Extraordinary, and accepted a cup of tea and a tour of the garden during which at least 3 gnomes were visible and nobody mentioned them. When her parents left, Hermione turned to Harry with the light of scientific obsession in her eyes. Did you bring the data? Hello to you too, Hermione. Hello, Harry, I missed you. The experiments were brilliant. Did you bring the data? He'd brought the data. All of it, the ring's complete log of every experiment, projected onto parchment in green text, annotated with his observations. Hermione spread the pages across Ron's bedroom floor, which was orange every surface, because Ron loved the Chudley cannons with a passion that bordered on religious, and the 3 of them sat cross-legged amid the results of 6 weeks of magical technological research. The synergy coefficient is consistent across all tested spell types, Hermione said, tracing a graph with her finger. Average amplification of 43 times base output with outliers up to 61 for spells with a strong emotional component, Patronus class charms. For instance, though you haven't tested those yet, can't. Need to learn the Patronus charm first. It's Newt level. We'll work on it. She said this the way other people said we'll have lunch. The more interesting finding is here, Experiment 14. Ring constructs built on magical frameworks don't just gain magical properties, they gain permanence. A standard construct dissolves when you stop willing it. A magically framed construct persists for up to 7 minutes after will is withdrawn. Ron, who had been listening with the glazed expression he got during theoretical discussions, perked up. Wait. 7 minutes so you could build something and it would stay even if you fell asleep, or were knocked unconscious, Hermione said, or were distracted by another threat. Harry, do you understand what this means? Permanent constructs, objects of hard light that persist independently. You could build anything, Harry said. Defenses, tools, shelters, weapons that fight on their own. A Quidditch pitch, Ron said. They looked at him. What? I was promised to construct Quidditch pitch and I'm not letting that go. Harry laughed and the ring pulsed warmly and he held out both hands to his friends. All right, let's go outside. I'll build your pitch, Ron. And Hermione, bring the notebook. We're going to test some things. They spent the afternoon in the field behind the burrow, and it was one of the best afternoons of Harry's life. He built the Quidditch pitch, not a miniature, a full-scale, regulation-size pitch, complete with goalposts and stands and a scoring tower, all in shimmering green hard light. Ron stood at the edge of it with his mouth open for a solid 30 seconds, and then he sprinted for the broom shed and came back with 3 ancient cleansweeps and a practice snitch. And they played 3-a-side Quidditch with Fred and George and Ginny, who had been lured out of the house by the sight of the pitch and forgot to be shy when a quaffle was involved. Ginny, Harry discovered, was ferociously good. While they played, Hermione sat in the construct stands and ran experiments. She tested the persistence of ring-built structures. She measured the energy output of amplified spells. She documented everything with the manic precision of someone who knew they were witnessing something that would fill textbooks someday. Mr. Weasley came out to watch and nearly fainted. Mrs. Weasley came out to call them in for dinner and stood in the doorway for 5 minutes with her hand over her heart, watching Harry fly through a construct goalpost trailing green fire, and didn't say a word. That night after dinner, after Mrs. Weasley's shepherd's pie and treacle tart and 4 helpings of everything, because she kept putting food on Harry's plate with the determined air of a woman correcting 10 years of starvation, they sat in the garden and watched the stars come out. Ron was lying on his back in the grass. Hermione was next to him, the notebook closed for once, her hair spread around her head like a dark halo. Harry sat between them, ring glowing softly, watching the sky. "Second year's going to be different," Ron said, "isn't it?" "Everything's different now," Harry said. "No, I mean," Ron propped himself up on his elbows. "First year we were figuring things out. We didn't know about Voldemort, about the stone, about any of it. We were reacting. This year we know what's out there, we know what's coming." "What is coming?" Hermione asked quietly. Harry thought about it. The ring hummed on his finger and he let it project softly just for the 3 of them a map of the stars above. Green lines traced constellations, marked sector boundaries, highlighted points of interest. The universe laid out in miniature above their heads. "Voldemort's still out there," Harry said. "The Wraith, he'll find another host, another way back. The Philosopher's Stone is destroyed, but that just means he'll look for another path to immortality. He's too afraid of death to stop." "And the space stuff?" Ron asked. "The Manhunter sent a signal before I destroyed it, a distress call or a data burst, the ring isn't sure. But if other Manhunter units received it, they'll know there's an active lantern in this sector. They'll know where to find me." "Brilliant," Ron muttered. "Space robots and zombie Dark Lords, normal school year. The Guardians might reach out too," Harry continued. "I'm a new lantern. Untrained, technically the ring has been teaching me, but the Corps has a formal training program on Oa. They might summon me, I don't know what I'll do if they do." "You'll go," Hermione said, "obviously. It's the Green Lantern Corps, Harry, you can't just ignore them." "I can't leave Hogwarts either, or you too." "We're not going anywhere," Ron said firmly. "And Hogwarts will be there when you get back. If the space police need you, you go, we'll hold the fort." Harry looked at them. 2 12-year-olds, almost 12 anyway, lying in the grass in a garden in Devon, casually discussing interstellar politics and the return of a Dark Lord, completely unbothered by the scale of it. Not because they didn't understand the danger, because they'd already faced it and come out the other side. "There's something else," Harry said. He'd been thinking about this for weeks, turning it over, examining it from every angle, testing it against everything the ring had taught him about will and courage and the nature of power. "The ring chose me. One ring, one bearer, but the Green Lantern Corps isn't about individual power, it's about the Corps. The collective, thousands of lanterns, each one covering a sector, each one part of something bigger." "So," Ron said, "so I'm one person, I can't be everywhere, I can't protect everything." "But what if I didn't have to? What if," he paused, choosing his words carefully, "the ring runs on willpower, my willpower." But tonight when we were flying, when all 5 of us were on the pitch and the constructs were holding and the energy was flowing, the ring's power level didn't drop. It rose, marginally but measurably. The willpower of the people around me was feeding it. Hermione sat up sharply. "The collective will hypothesis. I read about something similar in the own archives you shared. The power of the central battery is drawn from the willpower of all sentient beings." "You're saying the same principle works on a local scale?" "I'm saying that when I'm around people who believe in what I'm doing, people with strong wills of their own, the ring gets stronger. Not just metaphorically, measurably." Ron sat up too. "So we make you more powerful just by being nearby. By being you, by being brave, by choosing to stand and fight when you could run." Harry looked at the ring. "The Guardians built the Corps because they learned that willpower isn't a solo act. One lantern is powerful, a Corps of lanterns is unstoppable. I've been thinking of this as my ring, my mission, my responsibility. But that's wrong, the ring didn't just choose me, it chose what I would build." The garden was quiet. Fireflies drifted in the warm air. Above them, the construct star map turned slowly, green light painting their faces. "You want to build a Corps," Hermione said. "Not a Corps. Not with rings, I only have one and I can't make more, but a team. People who train together, fight together, cover each other's weaknesses. Wizards and witches who understand both magic and the ring. Who can hold the line when I'm dealing with space threats. Who can deal with magical threats when I'm off planet." "You're talking about us," Ron said. "I'm talking about starting with us and building from there. Neville has more willpower than anyone I've met, the ring almost sings when he's around. The Weasley twins are creative geniuses who could build constructs that would make own engineers weep. Ginny was out flying me today and she's 10. There are people at Hogwarts with the will, the courage, and the talent. They just need someone to show them what they're capable of. Ron was quiet for a long moment. Then he said, "You want to build Dumbledore's army, except instead of learning defense against the dark arts, we're learning how to support a Green Lantern." "I was thinking of something simpler," Harry said. "I was thinking of calling it the Corps." The word hung in the air, small, heavy, full of promise. Hermione pulled out her notebook. "Of course she did. We'll need a training program, defensive magic, offensive magic, tactical coordination, physical fitness. I can design the curriculum." "Hermione, we haven't even started second year yet." "Preparation, Ronald. The word is preparation." She was already writing, and the pen was moving at a speed that suggested direct neural connection. "Harry, how much of the Ring's database can you share? If I can access the core training manuals, all of it, everything. And the Luminomancy research will need to test whether the synergy effect works with other casters, not just you. Already thought of that. Experiment 23. Hermione looked at him, and her eyes were blazing with the particular fire of a brilliant mind given a worthy challenge. "Harry Potter, this is going to be the most important thing anyone's done in the magical world in centuries." "Or the most insane," Ron offered. "Those aren't mutually exclusive," Harry said. They stayed in the garden until midnight, talking, planning, arguing, Ron poking holes in strategy, Hermione filling them with research, Harry bridging the gap between them with the Ring's data and his own growing understanding of both worlds. The construct star map floated above them, turning slowly, and fireflies drifted through it like tiny golden snitches. When they finally went inside, Mrs. Weasley was waiting in the kitchen with 3 mugs of cocoa, and a look that said she'd been watching from the window and understood on some deep maternal level that the children in her garden were becoming something extraordinary. "Bed," she said firmly. "All of you." "Yes, Mrs. Weasley," they chorused. Harry slept in Ron's room on a camp bed between towers of Chudley Cannon's posters and listened to Ron snore and thought about the year ahead. Second year. New classes, new challenges, new enemies, Voldemort planning in the shadows, the wizarding world watching, the core, his core, taking its first steps. And somewhere out there in the vast dark between stars, something was watching back. The Ring had detected it last week, not a manhunter, not a threat, a signal, faint, distant, encoded in a frequency only a Green Lantern ring could receive. A message from Oa. Harry hadn't decoded it yet, he was saving it, not out of fear, out of timing. There was a right moment for everything, and the moment for that message hadn't arrived, but it was close. He closed his eyes. Sleep came slowly, warmly, wrapped in the sounds of a family's house, creaking floors, ticking clocks, an enchanted dishwasher humming in the kitchen, someone, Fred or George, hard to tell, laughing softly behind a closed door. Sounds of life, sounds of home. The Ring glowed on his finger, green, steady, eternal. The remaining days at the Burrow passed in a golden blur. Harry trained with Ron and Hermione in the mornings, not ring training, magical training. He taught them what he'd learned ahead of the curriculum. Ron took to defensive magic with surprising aptitude. His shield charm was clumsy but strong, powered by the same stubbornness that made him an immovable object at chess. Hermione's spellwork was precise and elegant, each incantation delivered with the clarity of someone who understood the theory behind every syllable. They practiced teamwork. Harry would generate constructs, training dummies, obstacles, moving targets, and Ron and Hermione would fight through them, developing a tactical language that didn't require words. Ron handled positioning and strategy, calling out movements, reading the field. Hermione handled technical solutions, the right spell for the right problem, adaptation under pressure. And Harry provided air support, long-range strikes, and the kind of overwhelming power that changed the shape of a fight. They weren't good yet. They were going to be good. In the afternoons, Harry flew, not training, exploring. He ranged across Britain, then across Europe, then across the Atlantic. He visited the Manhunter's crater in the Highlands and scanned the wreckage for useful components. He flew to New York and hovered above the Statue of Liberty at sunrise and ate a bagel he'd bought from a street vendor in Manhattan while floating 3,000 feet above the Hudson River. He circled the globe in 4 hours, the Ring painting the Earth below in shades of green and blue, and he thought about what it meant to be responsible for an entire sector of space. Sector 2814 wasn't just Earth. It was a wedge of the galaxy stretching from the core to the rim, containing thousands of star systems, millions of planets, billions of sentient beings. Harry was technically their protector. One 11-year-old boy with a ring and 2 months of training. The thought should have been crushing. It wasn't, it was clarifying. He couldn't protect the whole sector, not yet, probably not ever, not alone. But he could start. He could protect this planet, this school, these people, and he could build something, a foundation, a team, a core that would grow beyond him. The Ring had chosen him for his willpower, but willpower wasn't about doing everything yourself. It was about refusing to accept that anything was impossible. On the last night before they left for Hogwarts, Harry sat on the roof of the burrow and decoded the message from Oa. The ring had been holding it for him, encrypted, patient, waiting for the command. Harry gave it and the message unfolded in green light above his palm. It was short. Lantern 2814. 1. Designation: Harry Potter, Earth. Your activation has been registered. Your sector has been unprotected for 7 standard years following the death of Lantern Korath Zen. The Guardians acknowledge your appointment and extend the welcome of the Corps. Standard protocol requires new lanterns to report to Oa for training within 1 standard year of activation. Given your sector's classification, Level 5 Pre-Interstellar Civilization Limited Cosmic Awareness, an exemption has been granted. Training materials have been uploaded to your ring's database. A senior lantern will be assigned to your sector for periodic review. You are not alone, Lantern Potter. The Corps stands with you. In brightest day, Guardians of the Universe. Harry read it twice, 3 times. The green letters hung in the air above the burrow, and the night was warm and the stars were bright, and somewhere unimaginably far away, on a planet at the center of the universe, beings as old as time had looked across the cosmos and acknowledged him. You are not alone. Dismissed the message and sat in the dark. Below him the burrow glowed with warm light. He could hear Mrs. Weasley singing in the kitchen. Ron was arguing with the twins about something. The sound of it drifted up, words indistinct but tone unmistakable. Family. Hermione was in Ginny's room, probably reading, probably making notes about something that would turn out to be brilliant. Tomorrow, they'd go back to Hogwarts. Second year, new mysteries, new dangers, new chances to get it wrong and try again. Voldemort was still out there, a wraith in the shadows, seeking a body, seeking power, seeking the boy who'd burned his host to ash with his mother's love. There would be other threats, magical, cosmic, and probably some Harry couldn't even imagine yet. The world was bigger than he'd known, stranger than he'd dreamed, and darker in places than he wanted to think about. But the world was also this. A crooked house in Devon full of people who loved each other. 2 friends who'd followed him into fire and would do it again without hesitation. A ring on his hand that said you have the ability to overcome great fear. A mother's sacrifice that lived in his skin like a second heartbeat. And a universe full of lanterns, points of green light in the dark, each one holding the line. Harry held up his hand. The ring blazed, not the desperate flare of battle, not the focused beam of training, just light, clean, warm, steady light rising from his fist into the night sky like a beacon. He spoke the oath, not to charge the ring, it was full, not to prepare for battle, none was coming. He spoke it because it was true and because truth was the foundation of everything he was building. In brightest day and blackest night, the light climbed higher, the stars seemed to lean closer. No evil shall escape my sight. The words were a promise, not just to the Guardians, not just to the Corps. To Ron, asleep downstairs, to Hermione, reading by wandlight, to Neville, who was braver than he knew. To every student at Hogwarts, every person on Earth, every living being in Sector 2814. Let those who worship evil's might. The ring's light reached the clouds and pierced them, a column of green fire lancing into the upper atmosphere, and for one moment, one brilliant eternal moment, a boy on a rooftop in Devon was connected to every lantern in the universe. Every point of green light in the vast and singing dark, and the oath was not his alone but theirs, spoken in 1,000 languages on 1,000 worlds, a chorus 3 billion years old and growing stronger every day. Beware my power, Green Lantern's light, the light blazed, the night burned green. And then it faded slowly, gently like a breath released, and the stars returned and the dark returned, and Harry Potter sat on the roof of the burrow with the ring cooling on his hand and a grin on his face and the absolute, unshakable knowledge that whatever came next, whatever darkness rose, whatever evil schemed, whatever impossible odds stacked against him, he would meet it standing up, eyes open, ring charged, surrounded by people worth fighting for. The wind blew warm across the Devon hills. An owl hooted in the distance. Below him, the burrow settled into sleep, timbers creaking, magic humming, a family breathing in the dark. Harry climbed back through the window into Ron's room. He lay down on the camp bed. The ring glowed once softly and went dark. He closed his eyes. Tomorrow, Hogwarts, tomorrow, the next chapter, tomorrow, whatever the universe decided to throw at an 11-year-old Green Lantern with a lightning scar and a talent for trouble, he couldn't wait. Sleep came easily, like an old friend arriving, and Harry Potter, wizard lantern, son of Lily and James, friend of Ron and Hermione, protector of Sector 2814, dreamed not of green light and screaming but of green light and laughter. And the dreams carried him through the dark and into the morning and beyond, into a future that burned as bright and fierce and unquenchable as the ring on his hand. A future that was just getting started. Chapter 5 End.